Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of the Town Council for Thursday, December 16th to order. If you would please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. It's great to see a crowd here today. Any more than one is a crowd, so I'm sorry. That brings us to announcements. Got to start off lighthearted somewhere when you're going to talk about budgets. The town offices will be closed on Friday, December 24th, for the observance of Christmas, as well as on Friday, December 31st, for the observance of New Year's Day. Upcoming town council meetings are Thursday, January 6th at 6:30 p.m., a budget meeting here in this room. Wednesday, January 12th at 6:30 p.m., a budget meeting here in this room. And then Thursday, January 13th, 7 o'clock p.m. here is a regular town council meeting. And then there's a whole bunch more meetings coming up as we finish up the budget. That's as far as we'll go today. Paul, do you have anything else?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to remind people, property tax bills are due December 30th. Property tax owners who have not received a bill should contact the tax collector's office to arrange a duplicate bill. The transfer station will be closing its gate at 3:15 on Friday, December 24th, meaning that basically the gate will be closed to not let more cars in to the facility, but any cars in to work their way through, so the gentleman at the transfer station could get home on Christmas Eve and leave at 4 o'clock instead of having to wait. What usually happens on Saturdays is the last car comes in at 4 and sometimes doesn't leave until 4:30, a quarter to 5. This way they can get home for the Christmas holiday, leave the facility at 4 o'clock so they can
You're
get home
talking
for the
about
Christmas
Friday?
holiday. Friday the 24th.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to repeat that the transfer station gate will be closing at 3:15 p.m. on Friday the 24th.
Is that it?
That's all
That's
I
all.
have.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Which brings us to a public hearing. We're having a public hearing tonight to talk about the consideration of changes to the town of Merrimack's charter, submitted by the town council chair Tom Koenig and vice chair Finley Rothaus. The town council will conduct a public hearing to consider the recommended changes to Article 6, Section 6-2A, trustee of the trust funds of the town of Merrimack charter pursuant to New Hampshire RSA 49-B:5. Town council seeks this charter amendment to authorize the appointing of alternate members for a one-year term. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts before we proceed with a public hearing? Nancy?
The only comment I'll make is it's perfectly logical. I haven't heard any things against not establishing this, so I would highly recommend we pass this.
Okay. Paul?
Did you want to bring up Chris's email?
I don't have it with me.
Basically, Chris is in favor of it. He would just like it to say that the trustee of trust funds would nominate to the town council before appointment. I really don't think that's necessary
It's already in.
because they will be sitting when the council does get it. It was a very odd situation because of the trustee, Jack, that passed away, that we only had one person, so the council didn't see it to interview her and just appointed the person as the trustee. But that's what he was looking for.
Yeah. So the replacement policy says that the council replaces the person on that there. We asked them to give us any names that they wanted to present. We never heard back from them, and so we proceeded with the only one that responded to the ad. And then after that, we heard that they had somebody they wanted. So now they're just concerned that they don't want to be left out of the loop in this. But I don't think that was our intention ever. And I think that's kind of an understood personally. But so I'm happy with the wording that's been presented here, that's been vetted by our attorneys.
And actually, I believe this wording is actually taken from the RSA itself. as well. So
Yeah,
this was directly taken from the RSA.
okay. At this point, we'll open the public hearing to see if anybody has any comments. Anybody that wants to talk about this potential change to the charter, please come forward at this time.
Do you have to know the time?
Huh? It's 8:08 by this clock.
7:08.
Well, 7:08, really? Okay. That was a
Either
fast
that or an hour
wasn't
went by fast.
it? Okay, I'll look at my clock, 7:08. So please feel free to come forward and introduce yourself and let us know what you're thinking.
You want to wait till at least 7 or 9.
Well, I'm trying to. Okay, seeing nobody coming forward, we'll close the public hearing at 7:09, or 7:08 and a half, and see what the town council would like to do at this point. Any other comments or thoughts? What do we need to do at this point, Paul? Move to a,
The motion would be the town council moves the charter amendment to the tax collector for her to submit to the appropriate.
to the town clerk, maybe?
The town clerk, sorry, town clerk, to the appropriate authorities at the state for review, to be published, to be included in the April 2022 ballot vote.
So moved.
So moved by Lon, seconded by Nancy Harrington. Are there any other questions or comments?
Before you vote, just to make it even more clearer for everybody who's watching this at home.
Shall we read it?
Yes, please.
Okay. So, in section 6-2 of the article in the town charter, it describes that the trustee of the trust funds, that there's 3 people elected for 3-year terms on alternating years, so that one person gets elected each year. But then at the end, we're gonna add, semicolon, further, the town council may appoint up to 2 alternate members for a 1-year term. That's all we're adding at this point. It goes along with the RSA that deals with the trustees of the trust funds. It says you can have up to 2 trustees and that they would be appointed by the governing board for a 1-year term. So those people that are appointed as alternates would have to be reappointed each year. Or they could run for a position that came up and available. But so just adding that one line there, allowing us to be able to appoint alternate members in the event that one or more of the 3 can't make it to a particular meeting. And that's it. So it's pretty simple and straightforward. That's why we haven't given it a whole lot of discussion. If there's no other comments or questions, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That passes 6-0-0, and I failed to point out at the beginning of the meeting that Finley Rothaus is excused from the meeting tonight. He's got business to take care of. So there's only 6 of us. Okay? Good. That moves us right along to, back to my thing here. Legislative updates from state reps. I haven't received anything and don't see any in the audience. If Barbara doesn't have something in her pocket, then we'll just move on. Town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Working, yes. It's been a long week, sorry. Work is now starting on the Wasman Park Beach renovation project. The contractors are on site and dredging a portion of the project will begin very soon. The work is scheduled to occur over the next few months, and in the spring, they will begin to rebuild the beach, which will be done in time for summer. The project, when completed, will provide residents with a much nicer swimming area at the Wasman Park beachfront. Merrimack TV will premiere J Muse middle school and high school winter concerts on Friday, December 17th, beginning at 7 p.m. on Channel 21 and in a high definition on Channel 1071 in Comcast. Each concert was recorded with multiple cameras by Media Division staff with the assistance of volunteers Greg Cunningham. These concerts will play throughout the holiday season and made available on Merrimack TV YouTube channel and streaming devices all weekend. Solid Waste Division will be taking delivery of 2 new live floor trailers in the next week. The trailers are used to haul trash and other waste from the transfer station to disposal locations. This will complete our 5-year plan for replacement of these live floor trailers. We have 4 live floor trailers. The remaining 2 original trailers will be traded in as part of this transaction. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for the town manager? Just for the public's knowledge, live floor trailers are special so that they can get all the stuff they've poured into them out when they get them to the place they're dumping the stuff. The floor actually vibrates and shakes stuff back to the back so that they don't have to try and lift it up and dump it, since they're big, huge, multiple yard trailers, and that would be difficult to do. And if that's not a proper description, Kyle will fix me later, but, we,
A lot of moving parts on those trailers.
yeah, got to get all that junk out of there once you've got it all in. The consent agenda, we have nothing for tonight. Old business, we have nothing for tonight, which brings us to new business. And our first one is committee appointments, submitted by myself and Vice Chair Finley Rothaus. The town council to consider the appointment of the following individual to town committees pursuant to Charter Article 4-8. David Trippett met with us, along with Andy and Steve Perkins from the Conservation Commission for an alternate member position on the Conservation Commission. He was very excited about the opportunity. He's been working on the Sklar subcommittee and spending a lot of time down at the Sklar property, and wants to get more involved to be able to have more of a say in what's going on and stuff like that. So we were pretty excited about I was pretty excited about the interview. I don't know if Andy wants to kick in any ideas or thoughts.
I would just say he very passionate, has a vision, seems like somebody that's willing to put in a lot of personal time for the benefit of the community. I was impressed.
Okay. And all 4 of us that were there recommended that he be appointed as an alternate member. That's the last opening on the Conservation Commission at the moment. It changes regularly enough that if you are interested, let us know, and we'll either keep your name or we'll find you a spot. So, but I'd like a motion to appoint Dave Trippett to an alternate member position for 3 years on the Conservation Commission.
So moved.
Moved by Andy, seconded by Nancy Murphy. If there's no other questions or comments, we'll call for a vote. Paul? I'm sorry, Nancy? Nancy?
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say, I have actually been down to Sklar Park and met Dave, and I didn't know him at the time, and he was down there volunteering and said how much he enjoys it, and during the summer, he's down there having picnic dinners and stuff, so I think it's a great appointment, and we're really lucky to have men like Dave volunteering, their time for this, so I think it's great.
Okay, great. So all those in favor of appointing Dave signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That passes 6-0-0. We'll be out of here quick.
You just
No, I knew that. That brings us to item number 2, the 2022 to 2028 Capital Improvement Program presentation submitted by Town Manager Paul T. McCallie and Finance Director Thomas Boland. The Town Council to be presented with the details of the 2022-2028 CIP, Capital Improvement Program. This was vetted last week, or a week and a half ago by the Planning Board.
Last Tuesday.
Last
Week ago
Tuesday. Well, was it this week or?
No, last week.
That was last
Week
week.
ago Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah.
Do the new members know that that's the process the CIP goes through? I
Not
think that's
necessarily.
the planning, and for the public too.
Yeah.
The planning board reviews the CIP and makes recommendations. It just helps us in our considerations. So that's why it's already been through the planning board.
Yeah, the CIP, if you're not familiar, is a 5-year projection of major capital expenditures that we anticipate coming up so that we can plan for, budget for, maybe even put money aside in a capital reserve fund for. It helps us to smooth out the budget if we can push a car or a truck one year or the other and things like that. I'm not taking your thunder, am I?
It's okay.
Paul?
Nancy, do you hear? Thank you. Yes, you are both correct. About when the charter came out in 2007, the capital improvement plan was changed that it should go in front of the planning board first and then come back to the town council after the major portion of the capital improvement plan was reviewed. From 2008 to roughly 2018, it was the opposite way. We would come in front of the council first to present the capital improvement plan and then move that along to the planning board. For reasons such as the council might not be in favor of a program or a project, so they wanted say in knowing what programs or projects were moving forward. In 2018, the town council said, we need to go back to the way it was, as letting the planning board hear the capital improvement plan first and then bringing it back. I want to apologize that it's so late, but the timing of the capital improvement plan, some of the changes that have occurred over the last year, with me moving up and the new finance director and trying to backfill some of those positions, some of this information got pushed a little bit further along and into November. We were able to get on the schedule for the planning board for the beginning of December, and that's why we're bringing it forward. Usually we like to bring this forward and not do the budget and the CIP on the same night. We want to give the council a little bit of a breather in there. Going forward, I can actually say that will change next year. I'll be working with Tim Thompson. We're going to bring the capital improvement program or the capital improvement plan just as that. It's a planning document to use. So we're looking at moving it more into early fall, late summer, early fall, so that it's not a bang document where we're using it as a, oh, here's the plan, here's the funding, here, so it doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense if I'm bringing forward a plan to discuss a plan and then looking at, here you go, right now, this is the funding that goes along with it. We need to plan for and use it as what it's meant to be, as a planning document. Back in 1984, the town voted to prepare and maintain a 6-year capital improvement program, CIP, to the aid with capital needs of the annual budget. So basically to plan for the annual needs in the budget. For capital expenditures and purchases, the planning board sees construction, improvement of land, building, infrastructure, or equipment having an associated cost of $100,000 or more, and an estimated useful life of 7 years is what they can depict as a major project. However, our planning board has decided that they really do not want to see the equipment portion of it. They just want to see the improvements to land, construction, and infrastructure. The equipment, they feel, is more of a council decision and not a planning board decision with that. So that's where the distinction gets made between major projects and minor projects. So minor projects are anything that are a value of $10,000 to $100,000 in infrastructure, construction, and improvement, as well as all the equipment, whatever, at 10,000 or more. So, for instance, an X-Bark mower, which is about $12,000, that'd be on the minor plan. A dump truck, a 10-wheel dump truck, which is roughly $195,000, that would still be on the minor program, even though it's under the 100. For the new members, are you okay? You clear on that? With the depiction of what the breakout between major and minor is? Okay? Okay? All right. So the next one is capital funding projections, or capital reserve funding projections. And those, if you want to think about, those are our savings accounts. As my grandmother and my wife's mother, and as we, when we first started dating, I remember my wife's mother had little envelopes in her house, and she'd put money here, money there, and they would save up over time to purchase things, whether it was a new TV, new carpeting, or, groceries, things of that sort. So that's what you can think of these capital reserve funds are. They're like those little envelopes that we're putting money aside and saving up for a purchase. The reason why it's important to put money into capital reserve funding deposits is that it smooths out a tax rate, as you'll see when we discuss that a little bit in the budget. It will smooth out the tax rate so that you're not getting spikes and, you know, big spikes one year and then drops the next year and big spikes the next year because of the equipment or things that you're buying. So my projection is in 2021-22, we put a $1,870,000 to fund capital reserve funds through the general fund. Now, we have the general fund and then we have the sewer fund. The sewer fund is an enterprise fund which users pay those costs. So a lot of this we break it out between general fund and user fees. And sewer has $500,000 going in this year into the sewer infrastructure, and that's to do those projects that they're looking at. And those projects could be a VACCON truck, plow trucks, pumps, studies on pumps, repairs, things of that sort to the plant. As you know, we're going and putting in a $22.6 million upgrade to the wastewater treatment plant that's going on right now. So a lot of this $500,000 is to help with future of pump replacements in out years like Burt Pump Station and other Pearson Road Pump Station, outskirts of the pump stations that weren't included in this budget. The capital reserve funds that we do have are anywhere from an ambulance capital reserve fund to communication equipment, to computer equipment, fire equipment. There's a whole vast number of capital reserve funds that we put deposits in. And that's totaling what I'm projecting in 2022-23 to be around $1,992,500, which is up $122,500 from the previous year. Some of that is because of inflation. Some of that is because of road infrastructure. Went from what we were funding at $545 up $105,000 to $650 because cost of projects have gone drastically high with paving and drainage and just getting the piping and stuff in. The cost of the materials has gone up significantly. So, but these are the deposits that we look at. Here is the differences between the deposits from year to year. Ambulance went up $15,000 projection. Highway equipment went up $25,000. Revaluation went up $2,500. As you heard, we've just finished our 5-year plan of replacing our live floor trailers, so we can drop that money back a little bit. We still need about $100,000 for future purchases, but we don't need the $125,000, so we were able to drop that down $25,000. And then road infrastructure went up $105,000 for the $122,500. So far, everybody understands?
Nancy?
The only additional comment, and I'm sorry if you were about to say this, one great advantage and one of the reasons why capital reserve funds were established is it helps prevent bonding.
Correct.
Because you'd end up, if you had to buy so many pieces of equipment and you'd have to bond $2 million, we're paying interest on top of that as well. And it also helps our rating too, right?
It does help our rating as additional reserves, fund balance, things of that sort when you're looking at a bond rating. The town of Merrimack doesn't get an individual bond rating because it's too expensive. Because
Okay.
like you said, we use capital reserve funds and we don't go out to bond. We have communities in the state that every year they're throwing a $20 million bond out there to float, and that's for operating, paving, and equipment. And the town of Merrimack a long time ago said, we're not going to go and bond for operational needs, and this is one of the ways that we help offset it. A lot of communities are trying to get back into capital reserve funding, and I believe up at the State House, they changed the model, as you know, 2 years ago, saying we had to do a vote separate for capital reserves. Well, they're changing the language again to have it included in budgets.
The way it was a couple of years ago.
Kinda. So I haven't seen the final language, but I've heard the rumors, and I laugh a little bit because we were told that we couldn't do that when we tried to do the charter change, but yet they're trying to make it more advantageous for people to save for these purchases because they know that it's a good way to go about helping communities.
I just want to make sure the new members and the public understood the great advantage we have by doing this. Thank you.
I understand this is a very hard screen to read at home. It will be up on our website tomorrow showing the capital reserves, but we have 28 major projects that went in front of the planning board this year. That is almost a record, I believe, for my 17 years being on the council. On being as in the town, not on the council, but in front of the council too. That's one of the major records. a lot of this stuff, as counselors have said, has been on the planning process, and it's just moving from being out the 5-6 years ago, moving closer and closer to fruition for the projects to happen. We'll go on to the next screen. I have broken this down for everybody, because what I like to do is I like to break the projects down and say, this is what's happening, this is the current year, this is next year for next year's budget, and then looking out one additional year for future to get an idea of what's going on. I'd love to bring the public safety complex forward to a ballot vote on a bond this year. We are still having some land, trying to find land is really what's holding this whole project up. Because I think we have a good design. It's finding a location that we need. With that being said, with the new fire chief, Chief DeFranzo, I was sitting talking to him, and he says, do we have a study of where the firehouses should go in Merrimack? And I'm like, I have never seen a formal study. I've seen maps on the wall saying, these are our calls here, these are our calls here, this is response time to here, there. So what we're looking at is, if you look at number 1, is firehouse location study. We're looking to hire a firm to compile all that information and say, this is where we think the best location for a firehouse is, to make the call numbers and the response times being X, Y, Z, and see where they're saying the firehouse should go. Chief DeFranzo apologizes. He had a planned vacation for this week and next week. He would have loved to have been here, but he's in warm weather, so he's rubbing it in every day to me. So, so coming forward is that during the next 6 months, we'll be coming in front of the council discussing, trying to get this study up and running so we can see where these firehouses might go or might not go, or relocation, or what really needs to be done to make them more efficient and effective. So the public safety complex got moved out to 23-24. Of course, moving it out to 23-24 also increases the cost that we're gonna have to bond. Once again, the cost of materials are going up, so we're looking at an additional cost there. When we do that, they kind of work in synchronicity with one another. It's the South Fire Station. We've got to look at doing some renovations there. Not going to be looking at renovations there till the study comes in, and we move that out as well to 23-24. I can go through every one of these lines over the next couple of years, or I could just highlight what's moving forward and things of that sort.
So what's the status these days of the South Fire Station? I mean, we've heard in the past that there's some serious structural issues that need to be dealt with, and other limitations and whatnot. Can we afford to push it out to 23-24 before we do anything with it, or?
They are getting by and getting by on it. The kitchen is not adequate. It's not the best kitchen, but they can get by in that kitchen. We have 3 firefighters at that station. We have a lieutenant and 2 firefighter, a firefighter or a master firefighter. So the numbers are only 3 of them. So it's there. The kitchen's not as adequate as you would like a kitchen to be. The other thing is, one of the bathroom is a unisex bathroom. So if we have female firefighters down there, they're all sharing the same bathroom. They each have their own individual rooms. It's sharing the same bathroom. So we're getting by with it. There is no, like, the roof's gonna collapse or things of that sort. We have fixed the leaks, we have fixed the windows, we have done some siding improvements, things of that sort. The bays are a little tight for the vehicles that we have now, but the fire truck fits and the ambulance fits, so it's adequate for what we have. It's not great for
Not
what we
ideal.
have,
Yeah.
but the building isn't falling down. It's not crumbling around us. I'd love to go and say, yes, let's throw that $650,000 private donation that we got from, that we have up there into fixing it up. But we don't know if it's the best location to keep it there either, because there isn't a lot of room, land there. It abuts a cemetery, it abuts a neighborhood. If you're looking at it, going out to the right, there's some limitations on what we can build and the length we can build, so that all has to be taken in when we look at this fire station study, before we look at throwing some.
Right, and we've seriously
additional money.
considered trying to get it out of that neighborhood so that
Right.
they can get in and out of that station faster, instead of worrying about
Yeah,
traffic on
yes.
Natticook or whatever.
Exactly, but for the time being,
That's
we
where it
could live
is.
with it.
Yep,
we,
Okay.
we could live there. You know,
All right.
like I said, it's not great, but it's not falling down around us.
we put
Um,
enough into it to patch the roof, you said.
Yeah, we put some
Okay.
money into it, we built some rooms, we changed the bedrooms up, things of that sort. The day room isn't the best day room, the situation where people can come in and basically they're walking right into the day room. If they come into it, it's not the best situations, but I do have to say they are being good troopers and they are working through some of these
Okay.
issues.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
I could go through every one of these items on this list. I will like to just highlight a few for the town council. I want to start with number 8. And the numbers that are there going down the side are actually, in your package, you have a big sheet that you can read. Those numbers actually coincide with the numbers going down the side. So number 8 is, number 7, sorry, let me go up to number 7. Number 7 is sidewalks. It was a recommendation to put the sidewalk in 2022-23. I personally moved it out to 2023-24. Town Center Committee has a plan where they would like that sidewalk to go. There are some external circumstances that I want to see if they're going to play out first before we spend money, in case everything works out, we wouldn't have to spend that money for that sidewalk where they want it to go. So that's why I pushed that out 1 year.
Did you change that is that where it was when it went to the planning board?
I believe it was 1 year it was closer 1 year. It was in 22-23. I moved it out 1 year to 23-24
In the past week?
in the past week,
Oh, okay.
because new information has come to light since then.
Okay. At one point, up until last year, they had requested, and we had in there 200,000 a year for like 5 years or more.
Right.
Last year with the changes in property evaluations and all that kind of stuff, we took out most of the sidewalk money, but left it in for this current year.
Yeah.
But with the hopes of being able to put it back in.
Right, and
And-
where their priority on that sidewalk was, there might be other opportunities to get the same sidewalk built without the town having to pay and somebody else having to pay for it. The other thing is if you look down on line 16,
Yeah.
that's the big TAP grant sidewalk that we're doing from Greeley Street all the way down to 360 Mall. And that's in the budget, and that's starting to come and starting to work up, as well as there's a lot of other projects that are starting up, such as the bridge replacement. There's some drainage and some road repairs in the Woodland Drive area that are coming forward that are part of the MS4 project. There's some paving on Greeley Street. So there's a boat launch. There's the river trail that hopefully will start next year for construction as well. So there's a lot of projects that DPW is going to be involved in that, looking at it, honestly, the sidewalk probably wouldn't have got built into 23-24 anyways, even if it was in the 22-23 budget. Because there's a number of projects that are making their way through the system right now.
Okay. Barbara?
2 questions. Have you alerted the planning board member who suggested the sidewalk that it's being moved
I haven't
out
talked
to a later date?
I haven't talked to him yet.
That might be good.
I will talk to him, but I haven't talked to him yet.
Okay. And what I'm not seeing on here, not in addition to the Depot Street boat ramp, we had talked about Sklar as well.
That is planned out in the out years. This is only for the next couple of years. There's something going on and if you look at the whole sheet, there's something that will go for that later on,
Okay.
okay? With that. So that was one thing I wanted to bring to your attention. The other thing I kind of talked about it a little bit is number 8, the Woodland Drive area drainage improvements, Deerwood, Birchwood, Pine Tree, Fernwood, Forest, Hardwood, and Timber. We have $375,000, and we have that over a number of years to do the drainage and improvements in that neighborhood. We did one big chunk of it already a few years back. This is those other little streets in there to be repaved and work with drainage. The soil composition in that area and doesn't equate well to ponding. Ponding happens because it doesn't equate well to drainage. So we're looking at doing that projects in that area. The next thing I want to bring to your attention is number 9, road improvement registration fee. I bumped that up $10,000 because we got information that we are hitting about $135,000 now. With a lot of these new apartments, we're hitting that figure. So if we're going to increase the revenue coming in of that $5 registration fee per vehicle, it's supposed to be put back into paving roads and infrastructure, so why not include it, the $10,000, and put that in? It doesn't seem like a lot of money, but wanted to make this as accurate as possible. I'm gonna shake the mouse a little, it's going dead. There we go. And then going down, like I said, 15, the South Hagan River Trail. Hopefully, we can actually start the construction for that now and work towards that and get that built finally. I know that's been a project for at least 10 years. That was one of the first TAP grants we ever received, and we're finally up to the point where we can start constructing on it. Depot Street boat ramp repairs of $150,000. That's that small canoe slash boat launch that you have to go underneath the railroad tracks. You can't get a car in there and to launch a personal vessel. And then the next big one is fuel tank replacements and piping island with the canopy at the highway garage, and that's in 23-24, and that's $1.4 million. We still have a few years left on the fuel tanks. However, our piping and our conduits and our wiring is starting to be a little bit long in the tooth, and it doesn't make sense to replace just the piping and the conduit and the wiring without doing a full replacement of fuel tanks. And that will have to be a discussion that we have probably at the retreat if we want to move forward with this project, or do we want to look at other alternatives, meaning using the state garage to gas our vehicles, which is an option. So that's a discussion that we need to have over that.
I'm sorry, using the what to guess?
State garage off
Oh.
of by Elbit Systems. We can sign a contract with the state and use their gas pumps to gas our vehicles. So that's something that we would have to look at, whether we're gonna wanna do that or not. It's a conversation that we need, and it's probably a retreat topic that we'd have to see where we really wanna stand as we get closer and get better numbers of what the cost will be. And then the library has had a HVAC problem for years, and I think their chiller is on its last leg, so that $100,000 is in next year's budget, so that they can replace their chiller at the library.
The library included a bunch of projects over the years, all at $100,000. Is it just magical that everything cost $100,000, or do we
No,
not really
a
have
lot
an
of that
idea?
was placeholders, and as they come, yeah, seriously, no, a lot of
I'm
it was,
sorry.
no, you're right.
Okay.
And they were just placeholders, and as they come in, I believe the chiller was around $75,000 plus additional HVAC work that they need to do. Inside will be about that project is gonna cost about $100,000. So,
And they've got the elevator in there
Elevator.
for next year as well.
yes, elevator coming through, and once we get better quotes, we're hoping what all our estimates are looking at. I know it sounds funny, but that's usually about $100,000 to repair or replace what there is.
And we have a library maintenance capital reserve fund?
Yes, we do, and we've been putting like $75,000 in it a year. So that's really the major projects. In a quick snapshot, a lot of these projects, like I said, have been moved from year to year to year and have become closer and closer to fruition. And reality, such as what the roundabout was down by Turkey Hill Road and Woodbury Street sidewalk is that those were projects on there that now are coming off of this because they came to fruition. So we're looking at that, but those are the projects that I see in the next 2 to 3 years that are gonna be moving forward. And those are the projects, when I look at the capital reserve fund, anything in blue, for people at home, the darker royal blue, anything that has a CRF next to it, we look at that, and that's where we do those deposits that you saw that we talked a little bit about. And we plan these out for 6 years and figure out where we need to be with the deposit amount, trying to keep the tax rate down and stabilized as we move forward with the deposits in the capital reserve funds, so that we don't have those big spikes in 1 year where we need $1 million more in the capital reserve fund to fund projects. So we space out these projects as best as possible, and that's where some of these projects slide a year forward or slide a year back. But the next several slides are just back up to these projects as we talked about in further detail. So
So-
if there's anything that the council would like to talk about on this page, I'd be more than happy to discuss that.
On that page. Nancy?
I have a quick question. What of these projects, how many are MS4 related? Is it number 8?
Number 8, definitely number 6, and number 8, for sure.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions at this point? Andy?
I would just like to say, you brought up the South Station, and we talked about it for a little bit. And I get not wanting to spend money on where it's currently at. But I'll have to say, when we went down there for the wedding ceremony, my impression was that was a facility that the town is probably, at least looking at it from the exterior, not to be proud of. I don't know any other way to put it. It could use some maintenance. And so I think we have a decision to make. If we're not going to make a major investment in it because we want to relocate it or wait on a study, we should probably at least look at doing some preventive maintenance to it. So it is a facility we can be proud of.
Okay.
Okay, and that can come up in our budget talks.
Correct.
Make a note of that for yourself.
Yep.
How much, we did spend some money in it, but it was a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, I think we spent like $35,000
That was
to
on
renovate it.
internal, probably.
Hmm?
That was on some internal stuff,
That was
not
internal
major.
stuff. It was the windows. We redid the windows.
Wasn't major, I
The
know
back
that.
door, and redoing some internal stuff with the bathroom
But I
and the
agree with you.
bedrooms. So, yes. Yes.
So were you gonna go through the rest of these, at least touch base on them, or,
The ones, yes, on the out years, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm just
okay,
wondering if anybody had any questions on these, because we can go through the next step.
I don't see any questions at this point, so
Okay.
let's
Let's go down
see what
to-
comes up as we,
Let's go down to, keep going. Go all the way through the slides. Stop. So the next portion is wastewater treatment major funds. What I did is the same thing. I broke out the projects that are gonna be coming forward in the next 2 to 3 years. We have a relocation of a sewer connector underneath the F.E. Everett Turnpike. That is in conjunction when they do the F.E. Everett Turnpike widening project. That might get pushed out a year, one way or another. I do not know. I know that the federal money isn't supposed to be used for turnpikes, so I don't know if any of the federal money will free up other projects that may be coming forward. And then, of course, we have the $22.22 million wastewater treatment Phase 3 and pump station upgrade that's happening now. So I would like to talk to,
so, before you get away from it, let's go back and talk about this, the relocation of the sewer connector.
yes,
$500,000 to
yes,
move where a pipe is that goes under the F.E. Everett Turnpike?
correct.
And why are we doing that?
Kyle?
Phone a friend?
You phoned a friend real quick. Kyle, can you talk about that, please? Thank you.
That was good.
Excuse me, dry throat. So that project is, the current sewer pipe actually runs through a culvert that carries Natticook Brook under the turnpike. And, you know, for obvious reasons, you don't want your sewer run to be in the same place as a brook.
Hey, you don't get to say that, because we put it there in the first place. So
Right,
we made a big mistake.
yes. Well, it was expedient to do when it was done.
Yeah.
Now that regulations have changed environmentally and DOT is doing the widening project, it needs to be fixed.
So it's no
the good
longer
news is-
acceptable to have it there, is what you're
Correct.
saying.
What I would say is, in the slide or in the main page, I have a note in there that this was formerly known as the Executive Park Drive Pump Station Project. For those who have been around doing the CIPs for a number of years, when the old hotel project, excuse me, was being conceived, there was always a plan to put a pump station there to take a lot of those flows to fix this problem. And through working with DOT on the widening project, we no longer needed a pump station. And it took the project from $1 million project to an estimated $500,000 project. And there'll be no long-term maintenance costs of a pump station. And the last thing I would ask you to keep in mind is it's just a budgetary figure. DOT has not designed this section of road for the widening. There's been some discussion that they're going to put the brook back where it used to be. If you look at an aerial view or the GIS, you'll see the brook is kind of realigned to go through the culvert, and it takes a weird jog under the turnpike. So when they do it, they may in fact build a new culvert to put the brook back where it was, and that would leave the existing corridor for our pipe, which would make the project much cheaper for us.
Oh, okay. You wouldn't have to move all your connections and everything. You could
Correct.
just
Yeah.
bury it in place.
So we're hoping for that option.
Okay, but,
We certainly will, yeah,
but,
absolutely.
but they have, like you said, they haven't even designed that piece
Correct,
of the thing yet, and so it's at least years out,
right.
or a year or two out. and
Yes.
Could be further.
Question.
But, yes, go ahead, Barbara.
So Kyle, if that had to be done because of the building of the Everett Turnpike, why isn't DOT responsible for moving that pipe and making it right?
Because it's a private utility to them. Same as when
We
do
wouldn't
it.
have had to do that in the first place if they hadn't built the E2.
So it's kind of the same as when we do a project and we ask the utility companies to move their poles and wires.
Okay,
They have to do it at no cost to us
yep.
because they're in our right of way. In this case, we're in the turnpike right of way.
I tried.
One of those things, thanks.
Yeah. It's a great question.
Any other questions at this point while we have Kyle standing there? Okay. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
then we'll give him back. You might want to sit in the front here. Thank you, Kyle.
So, the next one that is a major one is we came in front for the screening buildings to the town council to use our money of $2.3 million. Well, we thought there was an opportunity that since we had the $22.6 million, $22 million bond, that there would be some principal forgiveness with that bond, with all the ceremony coming down. Well, as we've gone through the process, they have told us that no, that's a project that was already designed and you're working on it. What we will do for you is if you put in a new bond for $10 million, we'll give you 20%. So we said, great. We'll think about putting in a $10 million bond. We'll take out the $2.3 million that we're going to use for our arrow money, so that brings it down to $8 million, and then the $2 million we're going to get back to the state. That's around the $6 million bond. And because of where we were with the pricing when we went out to bid of the $22 million that we asked for versus what the cost was about $7 million more, we'd be whole and the whole project would get done. Well, the state came back and said, you can't do it that way. So we're looking at other options to see if there's an opportunity for the town to get some of this ARA money to help try to finish the wastewater treatment project. The one thing is that they say you have to do it as an SRF bond requirement. And then it will be principal forgiveness of up to 20%. So we are looking at, can the fund support a $6-8 million bond without increasing the rates any more than what we've projected? And how do we go around that? Because if we only do an $8 million bond, our match drops to, I believe, $1.6 million from the state. So we're looking at a bunch of different avenues, and we're gonna have that information for the council when we come forward during the bond discussion. At that time, whether we're gonna present bringing back a bond forward if it's worth it and feasible for the town to do another bond to complete what we've put off to the side. We are going back out. When the council was so generous to give us that money, we went to the contractor and said, look, we're ready to move ahead with the screening building, give us your final bid. They came in and said, wait a second, you got $2.7 million in ARA. Our bid's $2.6 million. We said, we're not doing the screening building right now. We're gonna go rebid it. The contractor has come back to us saying that since this has been taken out of the bond, they really want the project. They're trying to sharpen their pencils to see if they can come and meet the cost of the $2.3 million for the money that we set aside for that project of the screening building, which is, out of everything that was cut, that's the most important thing, because the wipes are getting worse. Ridiculous with the wipes and things of that sort. So that's where that's all tied into that $8 million bond and the $2 million ARA money coming back from the state. So, but we'll give you more information as the budget goes forward and present the budget with that. And then we have some of the outskirts pump stations, the Pennachuck pump station, the Burt pump station, and then we have a couple other projects there. We just got word late yesterday afternoon, early this morning about a study. And I love this because we give you can do the study. We'll give you up to $75,000 to do the study. However, you need to go present this as a bond to the taxpayers for them to vote on to say that they want you to do the study. This is kind of like what we had to do with Pine Knoll Shores last year. Well, it's the same thing for the nutrient removal system at Wastewater. They're gonna give us up to $75,000 to do that study, but we have to put that on as a bond to say, hey, town, do you wanna do the study? And we'll give you up to $75,000 in debt relief on it. So it's a $0 sum game, but we're not just gonna give you the money. We want you to jump through hoops to get the money. And the same thing with the ARA funding. We're not just gonna give it to you, even though you have a project that we know came in well, the bids came in well higher than, because with SRF, they're in every step of the way. They tell us, they review the bid documents, they review the cost estimates, they review everything. They sit here in the room when we open up the bids and they know every point along the way that we were higher than what for the project, but yet we won't give you the extra money you need to complete that project or let you go ahead and do that without getting the taxpayers to say, hey, float another bond for the difference. So, so those are some of the projects that are coming up in wastewater over the next year or so. Once again, these are all user fee based. These are all paid by users of the wastewater sewer system, and they all have been, the wastewater capital reserve, they're all been budgeted for, and we have the money sitting in our capital reserve fund to do these projects as we move forward. So those are the major projects that are happening in the next 2 to 3 years with wastewater and the town. So now, there's some other projects, because it is a 6-year, like Chairman said, go down to,
So these ones from wastewater, coming out of the wastewater capital reserve fund, that money comes from user fees?
user fees, yes, and get funded all by user fees.
That's not out of our property tax base?
It's not property tax at all.
Okay.
So then what I did, because that sheet is so confusing, the sheet, the very first one that I showed, the numbers were so small. So here are the next 4 years, from 2024 to 2028. As you can see, the bridge project, replacement of US 3 bridge, that's over by the MYA, that is due for construction in 24-25. We were told that that is because of the new money they got, that project will be totally funded from the state and not technically from the state and not federal. So that relieves some of the other funding requirements that we would have with a project of that side if we got some federal money, which is good news. The bad news is it's an 80-20 split. So we'd have to cover a little bit more of cost of the bridge. And that's one reason why we're increasing that capital reserve from 5 to 625. The next one that I'd like to mention, as you can see, we talked about the stormwater permit. You'll see that every year we have 300, 325, 325, 325. We try to set money aside in the capital reserve fund to do some of the smaller drainage issues that relate to the MS4, and that line is really just MS4, trying to do some of the smaller things. Number 8, we talked about what's the Windland Drive area improvements. We have done that, like I said, throughout the 6-year bond of 375 to do 1 or 2 streets at a time in that neighborhood to get that accomplished, to get the drainage and the roads repaired in that area over a number of years. Figuring that's the best way that we could go about that. We had a lot of discussions, Kyle, myself, and Tom, about do we float a bond for it, a $3 million bond, or do we do it this way? And we thought this would be the better way to do it than trying to float a $3 million bond for that neighborhood.
In this way, are we gonna do it with our people or?
No, we'll
versus
have a
going out?
contractor.
Still have a
We'll have
contractor
a
to do it?
contractor in there do it, but we can do, 1 or 2 streets a year versus a bond that might take the same number of years to do the whole thing and we felt this was the best way to fund this project. Because we have other bonding that may come down the road.
Okay,
Question?
right, go ahead.
Again, just clarification, MS4 related, right?
Yeah, some of that is MS4. It's not, those roads aren't 100% MS4 because the roads are in bad shape, but there's a
Okay.
lot of drainage improvements that need to be, which is part of the MS4.
Okay, but number 6 is definitely MS4.
Number 6 is definitely MS4.
Okay. Now, those are federal regulations that we have to respond to, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay. I just wanted to make that clear, because it's a lot of money.
yes.
And in fact, we have another personnel person that
Right.
we hired specifically to be able to work on this. Is that right, Cal?
We have 2 that
2.
we've hired.
Okay.
We've hired a stormwater foreman down at the highway garage to go around and make sure that our catch basins and we're
Okay.
up with that portion of it. We also hired an engineer that sits in Kyle's office.
That's the engineer
to
I was
help
thinking of.
look at these drainage areas and say, okay, this is what we need to do, and look and track all our outfalls. Because that's a real part of it too, is making sure we have all our outfalls tracked and we know what's coming out of those outfalls.
But my point is, it's a major financial investment for the
Correct,
town, federally mandated.
correct,
Okay, thank you.
correct. As you'll see, we have, some other TAP grant, anything with a red asterisk is a TAP grant that we're looking at. Wire Road intersection, we're looking at doing that through a TAP
Oh, there they are.
grant. There you go. Councilor Healy, you asked, number 13 is the Merrimack River Boat Ramp Access Improvements in Griffin Street. We set some money aside in 27, 28 to do it. We are working with Conservation Commission right now, probably in January, they'll be in front of you. They're gonna present some kind of fix to help stop the erosion of the boat ramp that's there right now. In addition, heard through the grapevine, we don't know this yet, we're hoping, keep your fingers crossed, if the railroad comes in, a lot of our access to that area will change, because supposedly they're gonna expand that bridge, and if they expand that bridge, we got a wider access, and hopefully they'll go a little bit, we can get them to go a little bit higher, so we can get bigger vehicles down there. And if we get bigger vehicles down there, we can probably maintain it a lot better than we can now. That dragging that we were asked to do when we did that based on, with a York rake and a pickup truck. If I can go down there and do something with bigger equipment, we can do a better project than just patchwork. So that's in there and out into 27, 28. The DW Highway, even though we're one of 11 that was presented that award in 2021 for the TAP grant, looks like it's not going to be, and we got it as a placeholder in the out years, but it looks like it's going to be a little bit further away than, in the 10-year plan, that it's in the outskirts of the 10-year plan, 2032, which is, who knows what the cost will be then, but, they're going to award, and hopefully we were hoping that with some of this extra federal money they got, they will move some of these projects up sooner than later, and we're still waiting to see if that's the case on some of these TAP grants, knowing that they fund what they're funding. As I talked about, there are some sewer line in 24, 25, the McQuestion area of the road, the Mayflower Drive, which is right in near the middle school. There's some sewer line extensions that are potential in that area, but we'd probably end up having to look at bonding that area of town to increase the sewer. Why are sewer line extensions in general fund? Years ago, several years ago, back in the 70s, there was an agreement made that any sewer line extension would have to be paid by taxpayers. And once the sewer line is extended, then the wastewater treatment or sewer system could take over those lines with an industry that was in town. And we have kept that in the works for all 45 years or so that were there. So sewer line extensions come out of taxpayer money and then get moved. Once they get approved, they get moved into the sewer fund. So that's why that's on there.
Part of that is because those sewer line extensions serve taxpayers.
Correct.
I mean, so,
Now, on what basis are sewer line extensions made?
There was a study that was done. We have a sewer line
Right,
extension.
and it had-
master
some.
plan, yeah.
I
That's
believe
right.
the first one was down at the lake area, which was over $40 million. So we're trying to pick out some of the low-hanging fruits that we can do some of these projects from that study. And this is one of the low-hanging fruit ones in this area to be able to be done. Another portion of it was Continental Boulevard
Exactly.
from Pennachuck Square down. That's a little bit more expensive than this one. So
I
we're
believe
looking
it
at
was-
these projects, and I believe, remember, we did, forgive me if Kyle, I'm drawing a blank of the shore. What was that we did over? Sunset Shores, thank you. Sunset Shores area, that was in that drainage,
That's
sewer
right.
master plan that we had, sewer system extension master plan. And then there's some others that actually a contractor out in the Wire Road area completed as part of their neighborhoods. So we're trying to check off some of the low-hanging fruit ones.
Nancy, Murphy?
I'm sure, thank you. Can you tell me, when new developments come in, I'm just thinking like the Brenda Lane, Wire Road
Yeah.
area, that new development, are developers paying like a impact fee or something to extend sewer lines? I mean, I know for that, they had to come down Brenda to get to where they were going. So people on Brenda Lane were in a position that they really pretty much had to hook
Correct.
up. So, I mean, isn't the benefit, the benefit is certainly to the people that get to live there, but it's also a benefit to the developer.
There are a couple of, if they're an existing home and they're running the sewer by, it's the existing homeowner that pays the impact fee. If they go and build a new neighborhood, as in Greenfield, correct me if I'm wrong, Kyle, but the developer, it's in the price of the house, that extra $2,000, because the developer does pay a fee. Is that correct, Kyle?
Yeah, so any projects like that, and that's a great example, the Brenda Lane one. So the developer, the contractor, pays for the new sewer main that runs by the existing houses, the accompanying road repair that happens because of the work, and the new lines in the new development. And in fact, on that project, they even built a siphon that goes from Pearson Road to Brenda Lane to allow for that whole area to be sewered. And that was all in coordination with the sewer master plan from 2013. So it didn't cost the town anything. What Paul was referencing, once the sewer main is in and paid for by the developer, then any house that's located within 200 feet of a sewer main is required to connect by both state law and town ordinance. And that connection fee is $2,000. And the individual property owners pay for that. Similar thing happened just last year with the middle school sewer repair. Once we finished that project, all of those 7 houses were now required to connect.
Great, thanks, Kyle.
Sure.
So, and then as you go down, there's some placeholders that are out there. Chairman Koenig talked about the $100,000 for the library. There's several $100,000 properties. There's a new library bond, excuse me,
Everything's
placeholder.
100,000. Everything's 100,000,
Yep.
Chairman.
And then, I hate to say this, but in 24, 25, community development will be taking the master plan up again. It's already been 10 years, so they'll be taking that up, that project up. And we're looking at, this is a placeholder, $750,000 for an athletic field. As part of the greenfield development, we were gonna be receiving some land over in that area off of Pearson Road. And we thought we could squeeze in 2 fields, but we can't. It looks like we can only squeeze in 1 field. So there's a plan coming forward with cost, and there's a lot of wetland mitigation and other things, permitting, not mitigation so much, but permitting that we would have to pay as part of it. So we're trying to get all that information that we at least, maybe we can get 1 more field in play in the Pearson Road area. Through that developer giving us the land, so. But that's out in 24, 25, and it may move up or it may move out depending on, how we can get everything and look at everything as part of the athletic field master plan, that we have. So, that is the majors. And as you can see, we have a lot of projects on our majors that we are tracking and moving forward. And moving, and we're tracking these, but as we look at these, once again, everything in that darker royal blue is coming out of capital reserve funds, which is saving the town from bonding a lot of these programs. So we're putting money aside each year so that we can complete these projects. If there's no, the last one I want to talk about is 19. And that is the pedestrian bridge over South Hagan River. That also is just in there as a placeholder. I know a lot of people are looking at that and love that bridge because they could get through and walk. It's $1 million to replace it. So it's a large chunk. We're trying to get it on the bridge plan. However, they're not accepting any new bridges to be placed in the bridge with the state, the bridge plan with the state at this time. Hopefully they'll open up again and we can get it in there and get some money to help off, because an 80-20 split on something like that is $200,000 versus the town having to spend over the $1 million to fix or replace that bridge. So that's where we're looking at there. There are other, before we move on, I will say there's other funding sources that we can go after. However, those other funding sources have a lot of strings attached to it, and I don't know if the town really wants to give up all of Wildcat Falls and put that underneath where we looked at, remember, for those that were on the council, the tennis courts and all the issues we had with the tennis courts in perpetuity, you have to keep it up and everything else. So there's a lot of strings that they put on some of this money, that we can get this money from the feds, but there's a lot of strings. And they just don't want the 80 acres. They want a lot more of the conservation land around the Wildcat Falls area to be included in this if we do go ahead and try to get some federal funding for that bridge. So we are looking at every possible opportunity that is out there, not only for bridges, but everything, if there's grants, if there's funding, if there's federal awards, we do look at all that stuff when we do go and look at some of these projects before they get constructed, so. That is the general fund projects over the next 6 years. If we go down. This is basically a breakout of where we stand with the funding. I try to be as level funded as possible with, you know, the $1.4 million, 1.5, 1.4, 1.2, 1.3, and then we do jump up in the out years, but a lot in that out years are placeholders that are even further out than that. And then you could see, you know, looking at some bonds in 24, 25 of about $3 million through the program, and then state aid, and this just breaks out everything, so that we're looking
So
to do.
23-24 has a 5.175 funded through the budget. How are you gonna come up with that extra 4 million? I mean,
Gotta go back and look at where that is.
huh?
$1.1 million of that is for paving.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying you haven't got places to spend it. I'm just
No.
wondering, because that's, all your other funded through the budget ones are in the $1 million, $1.3 million, $1.2 million
Right.
kind of numbers, and all of a sudden, 23-24, which is not very far away,
Oh,
is 5 million.
yes, there, the big portion of that is all part of the, with the bond for, the fire station, safety complex.
So that's a projected safety complex.
That's, yeah, that's
But you
part
don't
of
have it listed as a bond.
No, that, because we have two buildings,
Pardon?
because we have two buildings, when we combine the safety complex, we have potential of selling to offset that 2.5, but because I have to gross appropriate
Yeah.
in this, that's where it's showing up, and that's why. So there could be offsetting revenue with that additional money that you're seeing as funded through the budget. There could be offsetting revenue to offset that. So because we have to, what the state calls gross appropriate, and those that don't understand what gross appropriate is I can't net a sale. So if I'm buying a pickup truck for $100 and I'm getting $50 in the sale, I have to put the $100 in my budget, and then I have to offset that in the revenue. And through the revenue process, or the MS 434, when we set the tax rate, that's how that $50 gets accounted for in revenue. There's potential of whether we want to sell, what we want to do with these two buildings, which we really haven't had a lot of discussion on. And if that plays out through fruition, that's $2.6 million that I could see that we could get in as offsetting revenues.
Okay, but that's a $4 million increase in that year from 22-23, so.
Right.
I mean, that's a pretty big jump, even
That
if you
and
can't
don't-
account
and the
for
other
2.5
thing-
or 2.7.
Well, the other thing is our conversation that we're gonna have on the, that's 2.5. 1.4 is also the gas pumps.
Oh.
So we have to have those two conversations of how do we wanna proceed? So that's the 4 million jump between those two projects,
Okay,
okay?
We'll be having some serious conversations.
well, I had some serious looking at this, yeah,
Yes, yes.
okay.
So, go down. Keep going down. Minor, let's talk about minor. Go up one, up one. Minor projects. Minor projects, like I said, are equipment and vehicles, that are less than $100,000 and some small repairs. If it's already in the building, the planning board doesn't want to, go through and look at some of this stuff. So we have some things that we have to look at in 23, 24, and some of this stuff may even get pushed out one more year. But what I would like to focus on is year one, which is 22, 23. The simulcast system, line number 10, the simulcast system, 800 megahertz site is $762,000. That's phase 2 of the radio system upgrade, the 800 megahertz system. So that has to be looked at and included in the budget. Another big nut in 22-23 we need to talk about is a tower ladder. It's $1.5 million.
Tower ladder being a
Fire
ladder,
truck,
fire
ladder
truck?
truck. Fire
Okay.
truck, ladder truck. There was some information that I'd like to give you on that. We were always, prior, we were under the impression we really didn't need a ladder truck for buildings and things of that sort. But now that we've had a lot more apartments come into town, you know, the ladder truck is it's not as easy to get a ladder truck from Nashua or Bedford for some of the fires or things that we needed it for. We really need a ladder truck. It is getting long in the tooth. It is a 2000 ladder truck, American LaFrance. American LaFrance went bankrupt about 5 or 6 years ago, and the parts are getting very hard to find on it. We have asked maintenance to take a look at it, and some of the issues that they see to repair in the future is a lot of rust is starting to come forward on this truck, being a 2000, and it's been about 21 years old. We've been spending a lot of money over the last 4 years to repair it. Last year, we spent a significant amount, I think like $30,000, to replace the knuckle on the ladder. And it was down for 6 to 8 weeks that I could recall, because that part, we had to send the ladder truck down to Connecticut. They had to take it apart. They had to send the knuckle out to Pennsylvania to be specially made. They got it back. It came back. And then all of a sudden, one of our hydraulic lines failed when we were testing the ladder. So then it was down some more, trying to troubleshoot and get the part to fix the hydraulics in the ladder truck. Over the last 4 years, we spent about $70,000. We spent about 144 hours of equipment maintenance time servicing that ladder. I do not have the total days that the ladder truck has been out of service, but like I said, in just this last couple months, it was out almost 8 weeks just in the fall, out of service that we had. So it's something that we have to look at. We are looking at several options. We're looking at a 3 to 5 year lease option on the ladder truck. We're looking at potentially a bond option. We're trying to get better cost and pricing of what it is. That is something that we will be talking about when we bring the fire budget, and we discuss the fire budget in January. This is one of the items that we will definitely be talking about, and how we would like to proceed with purchasing or pushing this out. Normally, this would be something that we use the capital reserve funds for. However, our fleet, if you remember, we bought 2 brand-new pumpers that we desperately needed. One of the pumpers that we needed was because we had to replace a truck that we thought had about 7 to 10 years of life left in it, but we were giving us transmission problems. Our Suffin was giving us major transmission problems, and we didn't think that it was safe to be put on the road in emergency situations, because we didn't know if it was going to make it to the emergency or not. So we had to replace that truck, and then we replaced the second truck to have 2 operational vehicles. So that kind of wiped out some of our capital reserve. The other thing was, the thinking was that we didn't need the ladder, like I said before, because of buildings, and then all of a sudden all the apartments started popping up. So we weren't really planning to replace the ladder truck so soon. We're hoping to get another 6, 7 years out of it so we could offset it, but because of all this commercial buildings, and because of the repairs, and because the company going out of business, it is case in point. We have another American LaFrance. Just the switch on the window, power window, went out on it. We could still operate the truck. It took us almost 3 months to get that one little part, and you figure a $10 part. I don't even know how much. It wasn't a $10 part when all was said and done, because of everything that would happen with it. So the parts are getting harder to find. There's one guy who bought all the parts, and he has the monopoly on the parts, and they all are specific to American LaFrance. When American LaFrance was building their trucks, they patented all their parts. So you can't call another vendor up, a Kenworth or a Peterbilt, and say, it's the same number, can you give it to me? And they say, okay, what's the part number? And you start giving them a part number, can't touch it. So that's the other problem that we're finding out with these two American Law Francis we have. So it's a discussion that we will have during the budget process, but just wanted you aware that it is a $1.5 million apparatus that we're gonna either need this year or in the next couple of years ahead. So that's one of the big expenses there. I'd like to talk a little bit about number 11, and that's body cameras. Talking to the chief, transparency, looking at moving into body cameras, but once again, that will be a discussion that the council will have during retreat to see how you want to move forward with body cameras. But being transparent, we wanted to put it in, start looking at them, and moving forward with body cameras. That's the way policing is going.
We're spending 100,000 on that this year,
Looking into
on
it.
body cameras,
Body
looking
cameras, yeah.
into it.
Well, chief. That's why I have him in the audience.
That's a lot of looking into.
Yeah, well, they're looking into and purchasing, so. It's on.
Yeah, so this is a significant purchase, and it's usually a 5-year subscription, so I wanted to put some money towards that. So when we actually go with it, we're not looking to spend the whole $400,000 up front. So I did ask town manager to earmark $100,000 towards it, and I'd like to move on it sooner rather than later. So I think that's a good starting point. But like I said, it is a subscription-based service. At least most of the programs are. So I'd like to get some money in there just to show that, you know, the police department is committed to making changes, and that we're willing to, you know, go the way of body cameras.
So does that 272, how much is it? 225, 30, 45, keep going year after year, or?
It depends on the program you go with. Like I said, one of the programs we looked at was either 5 or 6 year subscription at a tune of about $400,000.
So every 5 or 6 years, we'd have to re-up one
Play
more.
that again.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is, you have to make sure you select the right platform, because obviously if it doesn't record, doesn't work, the storage is, you know, ideally it's cloud-based storage where we don't have a hand in it, we can view it and such, but we don't, you know, it goes right to the cloud, so there's transparency there that there's nothing being altered or doctored.
Very special cloud, I hope.
You know, that's where
I
everything's
mean,
going
not the
now.
one everything else is going to, because that's highly private information, right? I mean,
Yep, and it's all secured through AWS government cloud, so,
okay.
thanks.
So we're already pushing into that effort. That was my question. We're spending 100,000 this year.
Well-
We're spending it, or we have it in capital reserve?
We have it in capital reserve. We haven't come forward and asked for it yet. We will be coming forward in the new year to be asking.
Well,
to-
this is in the 21, 22.
Right, which is,
year.
we're still in that budget. So because it's capital reserve, we have to ask the council to be able to expend that money.
Okay,
So we'll be coming forward and doing a full presentation in the new year on it.
okay.
Okay?
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
So, and the cost of ambulances are going up. You used to be able to get an ambulance for around $150,000. Now, that was, actually, it was $150,000. The last one we bought was like 3 years ago. And now they're up over 200, and then we're projecting 225 in 23, 24. So, but we're saving for those. And that's the good part about capital reserve funds, is we're able to save for them and be able to replace them on the schedule that we're looking to replace them on. So that's a lot of information on that slide, but those are the major purchases in the next year and the year after that.
And a
That's fine.
pickup forestry truck's gonna be 100 and a quarter?
Yeah, that is not a simple pickup truck. That is a
Well, I kinda
forestry
figured it was
truck
more than a
with,
pickup, but even still.
yeah. The last one we bought a couple of years ago was about that price,
Oh.
$90,000 to outfit it, to fully outfit it.
Did you say a couple of years ago, or did you mean like 10 or 15?
Well,
years?
we have three.
We have 3 forestry trucks?
Yes. So, one is a 1968 Jeep that we
Yeah,
still
well-
are running. One is a 6-wheel forestry vehicle, a big one. And then one's a brand-new one that we bought a couple years ago. So this is going to replace probably the 1968 Jeep that we got. So, and the last one we bought a couple years ago was like, fully outfitted was like almost $90,000. So.
Okay.
Now we move into highway equipment, and as you can see, we're looking at replacing one of our pickup trucks, a six-wheel dump, two six-wheel dumps, one of our tractors, and then one of our message boards. We're looking at potentially replacing. One is having difficulties with battery charging and other things. It's getting a little bit old. So in order to run that message board, we have to be by an outlet. We have tried new batteries in it, and they just drain the batteries right away. So there's some kind of issue that we're trying to work out, and that would be what we'd be looking at, is to replace that message board. And then a trailer. So, and the cost of trucks have gone up drastically. What to put the plows on and things, the cost of everything has gone up, but dump trucks, six-wheel dump trucks have gone up, almost doubled in the last 5 to 7 years. Excellent.
Yeah.
So, and then we're looking at the library, the last couple, Parks and Rec, some cabin roofs. We're looking at having to replace 5 cabin roofs in next year's budget. Police vehicles are about $127,000. That will replace and outfit 3 SUVs. I'm looking to replace an old pickup truck down at the transfer station. And then some, we're still looking at the Microsoft 360 platform for mail and everything. And we're working on coming up with a solution over a 3-year period to start moving people towards Microsoft 360. Next. And then, of course, we have some user fee stuff from wastewater treatment. The big thing is the international crane truck is $125,000 that we're looking to replace. That crane truck is several years old. The reason why we need that crane truck is because some of our grates at the plant, as well as out at pump stations, are very heavy, and you cannot just lift them up with a person. You need the truck to pick up these grates, and for injury purposes. And like I said, that international is getting a little bit long in the tooth, so we're looking at that next year in the tune of $125,000. So, and that's out of the capital wastewater treatment fund.
Does that truck do more than just lift grates?
Kyle, did you leave?
I mean, 125,000 just, I,
It does. It's for pumps, it's for all the heavy equipment we have to move. And at each of the 9 pump stations, you have to move that kind of heavy equipment. And it's a critical piece of equipment. I forget the year of the current truck. I want to say it's a 78. It's certainly given us,
we've been using it a lot.
it's use.
Does it
Yeah.
get used frequently, or is
Yes,
it?
it does. Weekly,
Okay,
for sure.
Weekly at least, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I'm sure we'll be talking about it some more. Yes, Barbara?
What's the difference between the cars, the Ford Focus, for assessing at $27,000 and for wastewater at $25,000?
There isn't much of a difference. It's just, honestly,
Probably the air conditioner.
honestly, it was just an estimate that the person who was doing assessing was showing it at 27 versus the person who did the estimating for wastewater showed it at 25. We bought, well, price of cars are going up, but we bought a Chevy Malibu 3 years ago, and it was $20,000. So just the person who was doing the estimating at the
Okay,
time.
and what happened to the old patrol cars that were when we bought the new ones?
They
I
got-
thought they got recycled, so
they-
why are we not?
They do get recycled. Most of the old patrol cars end up in the building code division. so they don't get passed on usually further than that. And even some of the cars that get passed down to building and code are not worth fixing up, and they just get sent to auction.
Okay.
So, yes, we do look at recycling those cars.
Mm.
We still have Crown Victorias in the fleet that we're trying to get rid of down at Building and Hill. Yes, yes, so that's what we're trying to do, get rid of those. Okay, and then, Media also has, next one. Media also has some projections of what they wanna do, and it's $55,000 a year, and it's, based on a, equipment upgrade schedule that they have, editing system, cameras, stuff like that, public asset stuff. Once again, this is all paid through the cable franchise fees. It's not taken out of tax dollars.
Right.
Okay. And next slide. Next slide. Any other questions?
I think we're all snowed.
Yeah, well, I tried
No, I know.
to
I
go
know.
through it. It's a lot of information. This all will be up for the people at home. This will all be up on the website. The presentation with the backup documentation will be all up on the website on a lot of these projects and things. And you can actually see, there's a lot of information that we do put on these minor sheets. We put replacement costs estimated, we put when, the year of the vehicle that we're replacing, the division, and you can actually go out and see over the 6-year period of everything that we're looking to replace. We, you know, especially in the highway division, we try to keep the replacements around $400,000 a year, four to $500,000 a year. And Kyle does a very good job of doing that with replacing his equipment and keeping it on the road. You know, we have extended some of our trucks a little bit longer because of the generosity of the community giving us, being able to build that new highway facility and being able to use the old facility for storage of our vehicles. So that should save some of the useful, we'll be able to extend the useful life a year or two. We're still working through some of those older trucks though that were outside for all those years that we have to get out and get the newer ones in. So that's what all I have for capital improvement plan.
And as you pointed out a couple of times, these are placeholder numbers, they're not actual numbers. We'll actually be looking at specific bids and real
Yes.
numbers when those purchases come up. So the cars plus or minus a couple thousand is, again, just trying to guesstimate how much do we need to either put in capital reserve or be prepared for budgeting wise.
Correct.
Barbara?
I'd like to go back just for a second, back to the Firehouse location study.
Yes.
Is there a tentative start date on that? Or are we going to have to wait until the budget is approved at the April election?
No, because it's coming out of a capital reserve fund that we have. The chief, that's one of his things when he gets back. He asked his assistant chief to get him some information and some vendors, which he has been doing. So when he gets back, he can actually have a conversation with these vendors and figure out what he wants to have done and then see if they can do it and for how much they can do it. And of course, once we get all that information, we'll be bringing that forward to the town council because it's coming out of capital reserve fund. So the town council would have to approve to expend that money. So hopefully sooner than later.
Right. And I'll just remind people, the planning board did go through this and look at it, albeit somewhat briefly, because a lot of the stuff has been on here all along. Very few things were actually added, but they reiterated their recommendations to us from last year, I think without change. So they either recommended things as necessary, meaning they should be done in the next year or two, or desirable, meaning they should be done in the next 3 to 4 or 5 years. I don't think any of the things on here got rated lower than that. They have a 1 to 5 scale. Nothing was rated as 1, meaning that it's life-saving, life safety requirements. Everything is just, improvements in either efficiency or services of the town or something like that. Or desirable because things like sidewalks, as much as Nelson wants them, are more desirable. They expand the ability for people to move around and if we, let me rephrase that, when we get the covered bridge in project for the 275th, And when we have some things where we can do some walkarounds and stuff like that, it would be good to have those sidewalks completed. We have to just coordinate all of that stuff together, so. So feel free to pay attention to those numbers. We stayed late Tuesday, a week and a half ago, to try and get these numbers to you. I was at the planning board meeting. And they actually do think about them, so they prefer they didn't get ignored. Which I tried to explain to them that we wouldn't ignore them, but
And my
And we
presentation
appreciated
to
them
them
getting
was
it
10
done.
minutes, by the way.
otherwise, if they hadn't stayed late, then we wouldn't be doing this tonight. It'd be
Correct. In January,
the next meeting,
yes.
which we wouldn't want to do. Right.
So,
Any other comments or questions on the CIP at this point?
all right.
Do we need to do anything at this to accept this, or
You can just-
as you provided it, or
You
what?
can accept it as presented. As presented.
So the only real question that I think I need to bring up is the sidewalk one, where you moved the money out from this year to next year, or from next year to the year after that, from what was viewed earlier, and whether or not the council wants to agree that that's what it ought to be, or should we consider moving it back again? 200,000 out of $1 million road infrastructure, it seems like a lot of money for sidewalks. On the other hand, if we don't put something in, it'll never get built. So the question is just a matter of whether we think it's appropriate to continue to go forward with plans for sidewalks and trying to see if we can get it done, or you want to leave it at this. Nancy? Your phone.
You see the smoke coming out
Yeah.
there. I know how much Nelson loves the sidewalks. But I guess we're at a fork in the road. I'd rather put some money into the South Fire Station than a sidewalk, which is going to be open for discussion. That's all. You know,
Okay.
I don't want to dismiss it, but I'm thinking about other things we need to seriously consider too.
There are a lot of things we need to be considering, and prioritizing them is extremely
That's right.
difficult to do, especially when you know folks are adamant about some of them. And
Yeah.
that brings up the boat ramp as well.
That's right.
I mean, we've been talking about that boat ramp probably since I've been on the
That's
council,
correct.
you and I.
Yeah.
And
You're right.
it just never seems to come to fruition, partly because the Griffin Street Bridge there, or
The
gap,
access, right.
underpass is so small, it really restricts what you can do, which makes it difficult to justify spending a lot of money out there until we can get better access. If the railroad does come through and rebuilds that grade and allows us to encourage them to put a bigger opening, that might change everything. Right? I hate to keep saying, well, 5 years from now, we'll think about it more seriously again, because we've been saying that for 15. Anyway, so, Andy?
I just want to make sure I understand the sidewalk piece, because I think you stated, Paul, you moved that out a year because there was an opportunity that maybe that gets paid for, not by taxpayers.
A good portion of it might not be getting paid. If what happens comes to fruition, a good portion of it might not be paid by taxpayers, but
Yeah.
by the developer.
So I think what you're asking, Tom, is do we put something in this year for other sidewalk projects? Is that what we're asking?
Well, just either into the reserve fund for sidewalks, so that as sidewalk planning can be made up, there's funding for it.
So just put something in the budget to
Yeah.
go, okay.
And that $200,000 was actually coming out of taxpayer dollar. We didn't have that saved, so to speak, in the capital reserve funds. We were trying to build up some of that capital reserve fund for the first couple of years so that we could do some sidewalk projects out of it in the future. So that was coming directly out of the operating budget.
Okay, so what's the desire of the council at this point?
Do we need to make an official motion or just an acknowledgement?
What I would prefer is that, in years past, the town council has accepted the CIP plan as presented.
So moved.
A motion by Nancy Harrington,
Second?
seconded by Andy Hunter, to accept the CIP as presented tonight.
Again, it doesn't mean that in the future, It doesn't commit us to the numbers.
No.
No, it's just a planning tool. But this is the numbers that he's gonna use in his budget presentation.
Then can we state that, please, in the motion? Because it sounds like we've accepted it, and I think there's still a lot of
Well,
questions
we
here.
accept it as a planning tool. That's what the definition of the CIP is.
That's the wording I want, is a planning tool.
We accept the CIP as a planning tool as presented by the town manager.
Thank
Is that? is
I
that
agree.
okay?
That's the motion, and seconded by
agree.
Andy still?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Lon?
Yeah, I think the CIP has served us well over the years for what it is. It's a planning document.
Right.
Accepting it as presented tonight doesn't prejudice us in any way, nor does it either fortify or not the CIP. It is what it is. It's a planning document. I think it was very well presented, and I'm gonna vote for the motion.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That passes 6-0-0. Thank you. The next thing on our agenda is a presentation of the proposed 22-23 budget to the town council, presented by Town Manager Paul T. McCallie and Finance Director Thomas Bolin. Town Manager will present his recommended 2022/2023 budget to the town council. And we have nothing for backup.
Got the,
It's all you.
Gabe, it's on you.
Well, we have a piece of paper here, yeah, okay.
that's it. That's because I'm taking a page out of the old town manager's book. I'm not gonna give you the books in advance, so you can't look through them. No, in all seriousness, I wanna thank the town departments, for their efforts in creating this budget document with me. It was definitely a 100% team effort as we move forward. Everybody stepped up to the plate. Everybody made, put their initial, and they were really looking at needs more so than the wants of their division. And we think we'll be presenting a very informative and budget, and one that incorporates a lot of the information that will help the town in the years to come. So, as we get going in the budget, go back. As we get going in the budget, I want to just think of the budget as a fork. We
As a
have
what?
a fork,
A fork,
F-O-R-K,
okay.
fork, a two-pronged fork.
Oh,
We have appropriations,
Salad.
salad fork. We have appropriations and we have revenues. And what gets voted on in April is the appropriation side of the house. And the revenue side of the house gets brought in front of the council in September, in the fall in September, to be looked at and to be approved for revenues. However, we've always looked at this in the last 5 or 6, 7, 10 years as a tax rate. What is the increase on the tax rate? And to be able to do that, you need to look at both your revenues and your expenditures. So what I'm presenting tonight is that exact approach of what the revenues and expenditures are. There are some sheets in here that have become accustomed to the council has been used to seeing. It's the colorful sheets that Eileen has presented with the purples and the greens and the oranges and the browns and things of that sort. Those have continued this year. Some additions that we have made in the budget books and in the budget process, you'll see, is that the capital reserve funding has its own tab now that we will be talking about. It's not included in department budgets anymore. There is a tax rate as an overall tax rate to include capital reserve and general fund and operating expenses of the town. Then there's a tax rate that would be for the capital reserve funds. And then there's a tax rate that will be just for what we call the general fund operations. I believe this will clarify some information when we go to do the voter's guide. People are like, wait a second, you're talking $4.22 But in the voter's guide, you say the budget's $3.82 and capital reserve funds is 40 cents. I think that will help clarify some of what each component of the tax rate or what we'll be voting on would be there. So we made that change. So I did want to explain that to the council. They'll go see that. That's new in the books. In your books as well, you'll be getting a hard copy of the budget book, and you'll be getting a USB drive. For the newer members, I tried to include a org chart. In some of the org charts, we just copied some of the org charts from last year to this year, so that you can see the org chart, so you understand the positioning and the positions within that budget for each department. So you'll be able to see that as well. Some of the departments have given additional backup about staffing. You'll get that as well. We've given you that as well. So you can see what the department is looking for, and why they're asking for that additional staffing. So with that being said, I'd like to start going through the budget process if there's no other questions on that. Okay. So the first part is revenues. And as you can see, we had an increase in the planning board revenue of $10,800. We had several decreases. Interest, as we all know, we're not receiving any interest, and we've been slowly ratcheting that back down. And even ratcheting this back down, we're still about $100,000 what we're looking at to get an interest income. Tax bill interest has actually been declining over the years because people are putting it on their credit card to either get the points or not to say they owe any tax bill money or taxes, so they've been putting on their credit card. So that's been ratcheting back, and also because of the RSA a couple of years ago have changed the way that we can compute interest on tax bill or late charges. Current use, we had a lot of properties coming out of current use and getting constructed. We see that being less and becoming less this year. Administration charges, those are charges that we charge off to departments such as wastewater, media, police outside detail. That, based on our formulas, is a decrease of about $13,000. Solid waste is down about $10,000 net overall. And then miscellaneous is the factor that matches my net revenues, decreases and increases, and we're decreasing revenue about $176,559,000 from 2020 to the 2021 year. The one increase in revenue is the SAFER grant. It's going to be about $853,000 to the plus on that revenue. I broke the SAFER grant out when we were talking about fire department budget and the revenue, because that is a federal funded separate amount of money. So that is the revenue highlights. The budget highlights. So we talked about the appropriations and capital reserve funds just a little bit ago of an increase of $122,500. Computer supplies of about $21,000. Sand and salt. I just want to give the people in the audience why sand and salt's going up $61,000. We used to get sand for $9 a ton. This year it's starting off at $15 a ton. So it's almost doubled. Our salt was $50 a ton. Now it's $72.50 a ton. So it went up by half. So by those increases, just by the vendor increasing our sand and salt, not increasing our usage of it, it's $61,000 increase. General insurance went up $30,000. That's our guaranteed maximum rate. Library materials, $11,500. The patrol vehicles of $21,000 is for the outfit of computers, radios, antennas, things of that sort. That was an increase over years past of about $21,000, plus the cost of the patrol vehicles going up as well. Solid waste tipping. Recycling, we were paying $128 a ton in last year's budget. This year's budget is about a $13 decrease to $115 a ton because of the new contract on recycling. So that's a savings of about $19,500. Disposal went up $57,500 based on, we were paying about $72.50 a ton. for disposal. That went up to about $79.25. And construction debris went from $72.50 to $96 a ton. So those went up. Operating supplies went up $26,800. The fire department is seeing an increase in their operating supplies, meaning their gauze and medical supplies. Minimum of 10% increase is what they're seeing. So that's 26. Postage is going up. We have a primary election coming up for the state next year in this budget, 22-23. So Diane's looking at increasing her budget amount because of what it's going to take to send the ballots out for people. And then a utility increase is $17,850, mostly because of water and sewer increased rates. There's some gas and electric. It isn't because the rate increased, it's because the usage increased in gas and electric. But the majority of that $17,850 is because of water and sewer. Next slide. So maintenance of office equipment went up $114,000. $100,000 of that is just for the wreckage management system and the 800 megahertz system that we're putting in the upgrade at dispatch. So the records management system is about $36,000 for maintenance costs on that system, and the records management is about around $65,000. So just in those two systems, out of $114,000 in maintenance of equipment is just in that dispatch communication area. And then we have some communication equipment. The $762,000 we talked about, that is for the second phase of the building, so to speak, and some additional equipment for the 800 megahertz system. Radios in the fire department, they are looking to buy, went up $36,200. They're looking to buy about 5 additional radios, to give or take. And then highways looking to upgrade their base unit for about $28,000 for a total of $827,000. Vehicle fuel has gone up $24,400 in this budget. We were estimating or budgeting $2.25 for vehicle fuel. We're now budgeting $2.85. We were budgeting $2.55 for diesel. We're now budgeting $2.75. And we're hoping that the prices will come down when we're ready to buy again, so we get a good deal. Right now, we have enough diesel and gasoline to get us at least to the February-March timeframe, and we're hoping that some of the oil prices will start receding and coming back down a little bit with that. Maintenance of vehicles is $30. MYA maintenance is around $20,000, and that's basically for the field maintenance alone. There's an increased cost to doing field maintenance and the supplies around doing field maintenance, fertilization, things of that sort. Legal fees are increasing about $30,000, and that's just trying to get to where we've been spending. We've been spending a lot of money on legal fees lately because of all the situations going on, and that's trying to get us to where we're kind of spending to what we've been spending. Elections, we're going from 1 election to 3 elections. That's another $18,000. Outside services went up about $23,000. And that's really broken up into 22, 23, and that's broken up by 3 categories. Bank charges have increased. Ambulance fees have increased, meaning we use a third-party biller, and because of the ambulance runs and things of that sort, we're looking at to make that more in line, and that comes out of outside services, about $10,000. And street sweeping is about $10,000 increase. So those costs are just going up based on the cost of doing business. And then the miscellaneous of $21,000 is the pluses and minuses of all the rest of the budget.
So, Paul?
Yep.
You're talking about raw numbers here, but it might be interesting to know to understand the percentage increases that are going on. Legal is going up 30,000, but is that a significant percentage of how much we've been spending on legal, or is that a small percentage of how much we've been spending on legal?
In years past, we've been budgeting about $110,000. So with that, we'll make it about $140,000. So about a 30% increase.
That one happens to be fairly significant.
Yeah, right.
But outside services and stuff like that is.
Overall, outside services, it's it's within 5 to 7 to 10% of a lot of these increases. Because you gotta look over all the departments in the general fund. This isn't just general government or fire or police, but those are what we're seeing in some of these accounts. The MOA maintenance is significant. It's about 25% increase on what
And
we've
that's
been
for
paying.
materials to do field
Materials,
maintenance?
fertilization, things of that sort, and, professional service stuff. The fertilization's gone up, to fertilize the fields, things of that sort. Porta potties at the fields have gone up. The price for a porta potty has gone up as well. So I know it sounds like, oh geez, 20, but when we got 4 or 5 here and 4 or 5 at this field, it's not just 1 or 2, it's significant number of porta potties out there that the costs have gone up on. And trash is another one. Trash can, the dumpsters and things of that sort, those go up, and some of the dumpsters weren't being accounted for. So we were eating them through the budget process, and this year we've caught up to some of the trash. So that's all included in that MOA maintenance.
Okay.
Okay?
It just may be useful in the future to try and think of it as not just a raw dollar increase, but also what kind of a percentage.
Right. And we can work on that.
Yeah.
We're always trying to improve, as you know.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
So, when you get your budget books, you'll actually see individual line items, and then you'll see, I believe it says, I don't know if it says percent change, but you'll see the difference.
Yeah.
So for instance, it will show you the difference for outside services, which is, we'll just use general government, 0101 8359 0, and it will show X amount, and then it'll show what was expended for the last 3 or 4 years. It'll show you the budget that we're currently under, the budget I'm proposing, and then the difference between the two budgets on that. So you'll be able to see a 5-year trend of which each line item in the budget is. And I believe Eileen once said, the ex-town manager once said, there's over 500 line items in this budget. And then we give you Excel sheets that actually go into further detail. So there's thousands upon thousands of lines that you'll see in the budget process. So that's,
You're trying to glaze our eyes over. Is that what I'm?
is it working? Not at all, not at all.
Maybe.
It's a lot of information, and I just want to give you the deltas, so to speak, of where we stand. Compensated absences, which is a fancy term that we use, but it's really an auditing measure that when we have to, federal government and accounting standards say that we have to account for people when they hit retirement age, that we have to put their money for their vacation time and any other time that we buy out of those employees, we have to set that aside. So that's going down $21,000. Union wages, we have 4 unions that are receiving a 2% increase. There's a $230,000 hit on the budget just for the wage increases. 53rd week of payroll, which is in this current year, is not in next year. That's a savings. So in a lot of the salary accounts, you're going to be like, oh, we're saving a lot of money. Well, that's because we're taking out the 53rd week of payroll. I do want to mention that this budget does not include any raises for non-union employees. The reason why this budget doesn't include any wages for non-union employees at this time is, if I'm talking too fast, just tell me to slow down, is because of I'm negotiating 2 union contracts. So usually when we're negotiating union contracts, we bring, and once the union contracts get settled and voted on by the council to move forward to the budget or the warrant articles, then we bring forward the non-union pay increase at that time. So, does that make sense, Andy?
No.
All right. I'm in the process of negotiating 2 union contracts. The council has made a determination in years past that when we're negotiating union contracts, we do not bring an increase for non-union employees forward, because it might tip our hands to the union of what percent we're looking at. So once those are ratified, because the council has to ratify the union contracts by the 2nd Tuesday in February. So once those are ratified by the council, Then we bring forward the non-union pay increase for the non-union employees for the council to vote on. Okay?
And that is prior to the budget being complete?
That is
So-
prior to the
So then
budget
it gets
being
rolled
completed.
in before it goes to?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
It's all, once February 10th occurs, which is the public hearing date, the budget is complete and final, and that is what's going to deliberative session in March. And then that, from the deliberative session, will then move on to the ballot vote in April. Okay? But everything is wrapped up prior to it going forward to deliberative session. Okay? Education expense increase of $10,800. Uniforms of $13,900. And then this is the staffing that I'm proposing, moving in this budget. We know about the 4 additional firefighters through the SAFER grant, and that's at a cost of $395,750. We had 4 firefighters that we had in the 2020-21 budget, 21-22 budget, I'm sorry, 21-22 budget. We had 4 firefighters, so those 4 plus these additional 4 are the 8 firefighters in the SAFER grant. They make up the $800,000. However, the increase to the appropriation side of the house is $395,000 for them. I'm proposing a highway equipment operator 1, due to the fact that we have added several roads in this town, and mileage of roads, and you'll see the backup associated with that request. And that costs us $79,600. I'm also proposing a dispatcher, and the dispatcher is for the overnight shift from 11 to 7 in the morning. Right now, looking at listening and everything when we're doing the upgrades to the 800 system, one of the things was having 2 dispatchers on at all the times, and that will get us the 2 dispatchers on at all times. And that's at a cost of $79,200. Overtime for fire is $28,600. That is to get them up to staffing at 11 full-time around. Chief DeFranzo looked at it. We looked at our overtime numbers. We looked at the overtime because we're not spending overtime anymore to fill the daytime attendance. So we were able to use some of that money that we had in the 2021-22 budget, plus this additional $28,000 for 11 staffing, as long as the money, or as long as the budget lasts, and Chief DeFranzo thinks that is a good number. As I was talking, we had a significant investment in the highway garage of over $3.3 million. We had somebody that was cleaning it, an addition to our, just doing it as an addition as part of when they were doing town hall on the weekends. We have decided that it was not getting cleaned properly, and we need to hire a part-time person to go in there 1 day a week to clean the highway garage, to save our investment, and that's at a cost of about $11,000 in the budget. And then because of all the building in town, we're looking to bring in a part-time code enforcement to help with some of the inspections, because it's very hard for our 2 full-time guys, 2 full-time employees, I should say, to be on a job site of new construction. They want them there for the full 8 hours. And then there's other construction going on as well. So we're looking to bring in a part-time help with our code enforcement to the tune of about $11,000. All those increases total just over $2 million. And now we have some savings. Health insurance went down about $35,000. Infrastructure went down about $80,000, and then streetlights went down about $8,000 for a net savings of $122,000. General fund increase is $1,911,055. I want you to keep that number in mind as we move forward.
Right.
Okay? I know it sounds like a large number, because it is. But there are some offsetting, we remember the revenues that we talked about, so there's some offsetting revenues as well. These are the pretty colorful sheets that we've always talked about. What we do is so that there's a tie-in from department budgets to what is operating expenses. And what we try to do is we try to take out the capital, any infrastructure, any bond money, not bond, but any, it says capital refund expenditures, but that's really safer grant. Sorry about that. That should say safer grant, not capital fund expenditures. Money out so that we can get a total operating request, dollar to dollar, operating funds, dollar to dollar, other capital, dollar to dollar sidewalks and capital reserve. Since we removed the capital reserve from each individual department, but I wanted to show, excuse me, what we're putting in to those capital reserves for those departments. So you'll see, the money going into capital reserve fund out of the general fund's just over $2 million. Other capital's about $1 million. And of that $1 million, 762,000 of it, or 827,000, I should say, is for related to radios or communication equipment. And then infrastructure paving is about 1.1 million, and then the safer is 853. If you come down, the total, grand total of appropriation, gross appropriations is gonna be $36,227,005. Capital reserve funds is $2,502,500 for a grand total, if you add the capital reserve and the total expenditures, grand total budget of $38,729,505. Next slide. So talking about appropriation,
But I understand, do the new people understand what just happened?
No, you can go through that for me too, just,
okay,
so you-
I understood, but it was pretty fast,
okay,
so I think that's worth repeating.
we'll slow
So-
down.
your total expenditure column does not include the capital reserve fund?
Does
deposit?
not include the capital reserve fund anymore, because we pulled them out and they're separate.
Correct.
So if you add the two of them together, the the total for capital reserve funds and the total expenditure, the first column, it comes to $38,729,505.
So that's the amount that will be presented to be voted upon.
No, the amounts to be voted upon would be 36,227,000
Reserves are now being
separated, right.
Okay.
If we were doing this 3 years ago, that would be the
That would've
amount.
been included.
Even last year, we would be talking about the $38 million figure.
Correct.
But now that we broke out the capital reserve funds separately to keep apples to apples,
Which will help,
which
as
will,
you said.
which will help down the road. So that's $38,729,505.
So that's the number that we're gonna be talking about upon which the tax rate.
The total tax rate, the total tax rate is based on that $38 million, $729,505. Okay? Andy? Lon?
No?
Did you want?
Do that one more time for me,
Okay.
because the capital reserve funds have already been
No.
appropriated from
no,
tax.
These are deposits into capital reserve
Oh.
funds.
These are
Thank
new
you.
These are
funds.
We're actually
deposits.
putting in.
So we
Thank
have
you.
to vote on that way.
Did you ready to get that?
All right, so that would be a separate
That's
warrant
money
article for the
being taxed,
$2 million
it's being put into the savings.
for general fund and $500,000 for wastewater.
Gotcha.
Did you get that?
I completely get the
the
36,000 and the
question
2 million.
Right.
The other capital column that
Yes.
comes to $1 million,
Yes.
can you go over that again?
Yeah, so basically what we're trying to do with that, the other capital, road infrastructure, and it should say safer grant, is that we want to get to we want to compare operating dollars to operating dollars. So we want to take, if you take the 2 million, let's do fire. If we take $7,779,672, we subtract 54,000 out of it. We subtract the 853,082. They got an operating fund request of $6,872,590. What we're trying to do is we're trying to come up with that town manager's operating request because we want to compare each one of these against one another.
Yep, got it.
Okay?
Thank you
So-
for going over that.
So you understand where the safer grant money comes, where's the other capital money, the 54,000 coming from?
That would be other equipment that they want to buy, such as those radios.
But isn't that part of the budget? Buying that stuff, isn't that part of the budget?
But we're breaking out the capital because we want
I get that.
operating versus operating, capital versus capital, infrastructure versus infrastructure.
When you come to your grand total, you're not including that, right?
That is the grand total on the bottom of operating money. The grand
The
total of the
thirty-eight
budget.
thousand
the
includes
38
the capital reserve funds,
Yes, the 38
but
million.
not the other capital.
No, it includes everything. It includes all the other capital.
36, 37, 38.
No, you
39.
can't add it. If you're gonna add, sorry.
Okay.
Now I
There's the
understand.
confusion, right?
Yeah, right. If you're gonna add, you gotta add from, we gotta add from the 33. We'd have to do the 33
Oh,
million.
the other way back.
The other way back to get up to your 38,
Ah,
Yeah.
okay?
don't start from the 36, because that's your.
That's, if you looked at the budget book right now, you'd see summary of funds, and it would show you that $36 million. It doesn't break out the capital or the road infrastructure or the SAFER grant. It's all included in that money. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give you a picture of what our operating costs are, what our capital costs are, what our infrastructure costs are, broken out by category year over year, to make it easier. Because when we first started this, Eileen came in, the old town manager, came in 11 years ago, and I was presenting her with this budget, and I'm like, oh, well, she's like, well, this department lost $3 million. I'm like, no, they didn't. They didn't have any capital funds expenditures. So to make it easier for her, she looked at operating request versus operating request, capital request versus capital request, road infrastructure versus road infrastructure, to see where the departments are really going up in cost. So if we can go to the next page, might make that a little bit easier. So, so this is the appropriation page of looking at operating versus operating.
Your percentage.
So these are your percentages of going up and down by division. And you know, you'll see some large ones like maybe communications, and we talked about that. That's those contracts and the staffing there. So to make up that 161,000. So coming down, the appropriation to appropriation went up 158, operating went up 158,509, just my operating cost. Okay? If we go to the next slide, capital reserve fund deposits went up 122,500. Other capital went up $856,000. Infrastructure went down 80. The SAFER grant is 853. We're back to that 1,911,055.
Wait. That was the increase you talked about a
That
while
was the
ago.
increase I talked about a couple slides ago,
I see that.
okay? But this is how it breaks out. So when you're looking at it, operation expenses went up 156,000. Equipment or other capital went up almost not 850,000, and then the SAFER grant was another $853,000. So out of that $1.9 million, we're looking at between capital and SAFER, almost 1.7 of that $1.9 million increase. Okay? So far?
Yeah, it'll be clear
Let's get that.
later.
As my
Barbara?
Question for you, especially for fire, for some of the equipment needs that are being requested in the budget, we have 2 trust funds dedicated to fire. Has any consideration been made to tap those so that we can lower those costs? I mean, just for the radios alone, we could pull out $50,000.
The only problem with something like that, those trust funds are specific to an area of town.
Mm-hmm.
So those radios would have to be picked up when they go into that area of town and then dropped off in the area of town. They can only be used in that area of town if we're gonna go for the full amount.
I'm not sure that's,
That is the case.
Yeah.
We've looked at it, we've tried to
Okay.
get an ambulance out of them, we've tried to get a fire truck out of them, and they've said, okay, how many runs are in that section that's covered by that, and they will break down the cost that way. So they are very specific to that area of town that those trust funds can only be used for. We've looked at it. I've looked at it several different ways over the years, trying to get money out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because the trusts were written in such a way, and that money was given to the bequest to the town in such a way that it was supposed to be used just for that section of the town. And it was accepted that way.
Well, because they were villages.
At that time, yes.
Whatever.
So,
Okay.
so when all said and done, you take the 1,911,055. We skipped a few slides up. Where are we? Go back. We skipped the 2 capital reserve funds slides.
On purpose?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I think we've
We
killed
beat that horse?
Yes, that horse is laying down right now. So you take the general fund of 1,911,055, and then you take out your self-supporting funds, which are 100% covered by revenues, and the grand total of all funds in the budget is an increase of $1,735,010. But because self-supporting funds are 100% offset by revenues, those revenues are also decreased. And you'll see that on the next slide. This is the summary. And here's your differences. So general fund operating went up $158,000. Capital reserve funds, $122,000. Other capital, $856,000. Road infrastructure sidewalk expansion went down $80,000. Safer grant went up $853,000. Self-supporting funds went down $176,000 for a total net difference in operating appropriations of $1,735,010. Revenues for general fund, non-tax revenues, that means car registrations, boat registrations, ambulance fees, interest on income, we're expecting $11,201,584. Fund balance usage went down $300,000. We're only projecting to use $1.3 million instead of $1.6 million. Motor vehicle registration went up $10,000. Safer grant is $853,000, and then self-supporting funds for total revenue of $19,662,742. Take the overlay, the same overlay, same veteran credit, to be raised by taxes is $20,258,843. We have had such large increases in town value, and we continue to have large increases in town value next year to the tune of we're estimating $132 million increase in value next year by some of the apartments and some of the developments that are going up, to bring our total town value of over $5 billion. So you take the $20,258,843, you divide that by the $5 billion, it comes to a tax rate of $4.20, or an increase. $4.02, sorry. 4.02, it's getting late, I'm sorry. It's been a long day.
He's been up early today.
$4.02, I'm sorry, $4.02, or an increase of 20 cents over last year's tax rate of $3.82. However, there are some pending issues that are related to this budget. We're in the second year of a state biennial budget. state rooms revenues for meals and highway block grant, we're estimating the same as last year. Those could either go up or down. We did not include non-union raises, and we have two contracts that are, two groups of individuals that are without contracts that will be being voted on, hopefully in April as well. And those are the ASME, American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees, Group 2986, which are our highway, solid waste, and wastewater workers, and our Teamsters, which are our highway, wastewater, solid waste supervisors. So those two contracts are the two contracts I'm currently negotiating. Okay? This slide breaks out how your 2021 tax bill was broken out. The slide hasn't moved much from years to years. We're still within 23% is related to the town. 66, 67, 68% is related to the school, and the remaining 5 to 10% is related to the county. What I would like to do on the next slide is that the typical bill for an assessed value home of $366,400. That's our new median price for houses in the town of Merrimack, $366,400. That's the average home value, is $6,291. Last year, it was $6,289. So the proportionments are municipality would be broken out, about $1,400 of that would go to the municipality. $4,561 would go to school, or almost 73%. County would get about $330, or 5%. And that's how your taxes are broken out in the town of Merrimack for your 2021 tax bill of $17.17. Next slide. Questions? Sure you have a
Questions?
lot.
Huh?
Sure you have a lot. But
Well-
remember, we're gonna go over each individual department budget over the three-day period in January. Department heads will be here to present their budgets and to answer any questions that the council may have. The schedule will be in the front of your book. I want to give out the books now. The schedule will be in your front of your book of which departments we're doing on which day. We gave the new fire chief a break. We figured we didn't want him coming in right out hot underneath the gun at the first one, so the fire department will be the last one. But on I believe it's the first meeting in January that we have, it will be assessing, tax collector, community development, and that's in the book. That's in the book. So you'll have the book and you'll have your USB drive. So,
This is for the new members, this is your light reading.
yes, this is your Christmas present from the finance department.
You know those weeks that we had light meetings? They're gone.
Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions at this point? Or do you want to go sleep on it?
Sleep on it.
Andy?
Yeah, just one question on the, I don't know what slide it is, the appropriations where you compare last year to this year and you give a percentage increase. The numbers you compared to, based on the previous slide is after you pulled out other capital items and those things. Did you do the same thing for the 21-22 year that you're comparing it against?
Yes, I would have those numbers for you. I can get those numbers for you.
I'm just saying that number that you're comparing it against, did you pull out the other capital?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So
It's
I just
apples to
wanted-
apples.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you, in the front of the book, if you want to open up your book, in your front of your book, you got a long 11 by 17 sheet with the colors. and you can see it right there. Okay? You're welcome.
It's a challenge. I mean, we've always tried to keep the budget under control, and somehow with capital expenditures and things like that, it seems to be going up quite a bit this year.
Right.
And,
And the departments did, like I said, did do a great job. When I came to the council in October, we were projecting what we knew was just a 26-cent increase. So, you know, they really put only the needs in the budget. There isn't a lot of want in there. It's what we need.
I think what's hard too is that everyone is aware of the inflation that's going on. And that
Well-
certainly is having an impact on every department in some way or another, so that's,
well, and unfortunately, we're all projecting those numbers too, and we're still at the front edge of that
That's right.
piece. So in order to try to project it intelligently, or
yeah.
to not be in too much trouble come the end of next year, those numbers, I'd like to hope are kind of on the conservative side, but it still shows a $1.5 million increase in tax money. The tax rate goes up because the valuation of the town went up, so it's not really that big of a hit as far as the tax rate's concerned. But it's still a large increase in the town side of the budget.
Yeah.
To go up to 38 million from the town budget is pretty steep, but some of those are expenses that, I don't know, I mean, things like the radio system and whatnot,
Yeah.
that's an upfront cost that we're not necessarily gonna be see year on year, right? There'll be
No.
maintenance and things like that, but there won't be,
The maintenance cost you'll see of the $100,000.
Yeah,
You won't see the
you won't see the-
you won't see 762,000 or 827,000 year after year. You might see some radios
some
that they have to,
modifications or increases,
they
yeah.
would have to
But I
buy.
mean, so
but
there are some
nothing
things in
that.
there that are just, one-time shots, and there are others that we just have to be careful with, right? Excuse me.
For
So,
me-
um,
Go ahead.
then, huh?
I was just gonna say, for me, the benchmark, the cost of living increase for those folks on fixed incomes, Social Security, if we could somehow stay under that to where we don't erode their income, that would be ideal as far as the tax rate increase. And I think they're at like 6% this year is
Right.
what they received, so.
It's gone already.
We're right, we're at around 5.3, so.
Yeah.
on the tax
Okay.
rate increase, so.
So we'll work on it. I mean, that's your job for the next month, is to go through this and figure out where you think we need to be for the town.
And if you want any information to make those discussions with departments that much more fruitful, if you have questions, if you get them to me early enough, I can get them to the department so they can have answers for
Real
you at that
answers,
meeting.
as opposed to
Yeah,
off-the-cuff answers, yeah.
Yeah, so they can do some research and things of that sort. Sort of like what I did with the ladder truck to come up with expenses and what we're seeing and things of that sort,
Right,
so.
okay.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. We'll obviously have our work cut out for us to even understand all this, so that's a good thing. And thanks to all the department heads for being here. I appreciate it.
It was a group effort.
I'm sure it was, especially being your first year and at the top of the list there.
I'm sure they're happy it's not 10 o'clock.
I'm sure I am.
And so are we.
That brings us to minutes. We have two sets of minutes tonight. November 18th and December 2nd.
I'd like to move acceptance of the town council meeting minutes for November 18th, 2021 as written.
Second.
Second.
I didn't
So moved by Nancy Harrington and seconded by Barbara Healy, because she beat you to it. Does anybody have any other, you weren't even there. Were you there for that one, Nancy?
Yes, I was.
Oh, okay. There's a note in yellow here saying that, oh, abstaining, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
If there's no other corrections or changes to those minutes, we'll call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That passes 6-0-0. Then we have minutes from December 2nd.
Move that to presented.
Motion to accept the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Nancy Harrington. Well, I heard Nancy, sorry. Does anybody else have any changes or corrections to the minutes? Just me? Okay. So on page 4 of 9 and line 8, it says Chairman Koenig requested to remove agenda item. It should just be move the agenda item. Then on page 6 of 9, that whole discussion that we went through about the solid waste and the overhead costs and stuff like that, if you look at that third paragraph from 20 to 36, it talks several times in there about having the handling fee be $50. And then in the motion, it says $55. And so I talked to Finley, and I had actually made a suggestion that just for, I was comfortable with the $50 number, but to put in an incremental increase, I would support a $55 number. And then Finley made the motion to go ahead and go with that $55 number. So I wanted to add a paragraph, which I sent to Paul, which I think says, Chairman Koenig suggested that while he is comfortable with a $50 overhead rate for commercial waste, perhaps an incremental raise to $55 would be acceptable for now, pending further reevaluation. And I wanted to add that in at line 37, or at the end of a new paragraph at the end, prior to that motion, just to try and clarify, because when we come back and look at this, where did that number come from? It's totally out of the air. It's never been mentioned or anything. And I had specifically mentioned it. Finley agreed that that's why he made that motion. I also asked Paul if we could include in the minutes the table that Kyle had given us of recommended increases, just so that when you look through some of these numbers and they're being thrown out, overhead versus, the tipping fee and stuff, just so that if you come back in a year, you don't have to go find the actual agenda items to see what the heck is being talked about. It would just clarify that piece a little bit more.
So there should be a note on there, see attachment 1.
Yes.
Okay. That makes sense, Paul?
At the
Just
very end,
attach
like,
that piece and.
after
and-
the comment from Tom,
I can, yep,
parentheses, see attachment
yep,
1.
that'll work.
Okay, and on page 7 of 9, line 37 says that this motion carries 601, but I don't know anybody abstained, because I think there were only 6 people at the meeting. So it should have been a 600 vote. It doesn't say who abstained, and there's a 1 there, so it needs to be 600.
Is that when Mr. Hunter was not here?
I was not.
Well, he was thinking of us then.
Andy Hunter wasn't here.
He
Yeah,
was thinking of
Oh,
us.
yeah.
That's right.
he was thinking of abstaining for that one?
Yeah.
He abstained for all
He
of
was
them. but-
abstaining for the whole meeting.
And that's the last of the changes that I had. So if that's acceptable and there's nothing else, we could call for a vote on the motion, on the minutes as modified. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? Andy Hunter abstains. That's 501. He was not here for that meeting, so. Excuse me. Why is that in there? Which brings us to comments from the press. Nobody here. Comments from the public. Nobody here. Comments from the council. Nancy. Murphy.
Thank you. I have actually, it's going to take just a couple of minutes. One, I just wanted to say how great it was to see so many people attend the Christmas tree lighting the other day. There were hundreds of people at that. It was absolutely packed. I mean, there were, choruses and dance groups and the high school band and food. The weather was nice too, so that really helped, but it was really wonderful. The other thing I was gonna mention is on Saturday, finally, last time I'd be making this announcement, is the Wreaths Across America, laying on of wreaths at noontime at Last Rest Cemetery. I know a lot of us had the opportunity to see the convoy come by on Monday, which was amazing. There were some great videos. I know, actually, Bob posted one of the children on that. I missed it. I could hear them. That was phenomenal. That was really great. And to think they're a 737-mile trek to travel down Arlington National Cemetery is amazing. So it was a wonderful thing to see. And I expect a huge turnout. I think we have over 200 volunteers on Saturday.
In
But
the snow.
in the snow. Yeah, well, hold 2 o'clock. I heard it's gonna hold off till 2. But the last,
Count on it.
the last thing I wanted to talk about is, I sit on the HB 737 Commission, and I just wanted to update, given some of the events of the week. I think this is sort of timely. And I'll go back a little bit just so people know where this information just that we're hearing about this week just sort of came from. Back in 2017, a group of us, actually as part of Merrimack Citizens for Clean Water, went to the New Hampshire DHHS and requested, we were really concerned about health impacts here in Merrimack because we had just, learned about the PFAS contamination of our water. And once we knew what PFAS did, obviously became concerned. So we asked for a health study, we asked for cancer results for our community, and finally received those in January of 2018. The cancer incidence report that we received then, according to DHHS, did not indicate any statistical significance of elevated cancers here. In 2019, when I was a state rep, as a retired nurse, we were concerned about health, and I wrote a bill that created a commission to look into the health impacts of PFAS in our community. Not only Merrimack, but Bedford and Litchfield, and we've since added Londonderry. So in 2019, that bill was signed into law by the governor, and there were a number of us, I think it's 21 actual members of the commission. And we look at the extent of the contamination and the environmental and public health impacts that come as a result. Since the inception of that, we have been asking DHHS for updated cancer cases for our community. And what happened on Friday was finally the release of that information. The Director of Public Health Services, Trish Tilley, came along with Whitney Hammond from the Cancer Registry to present the information to the commission, and then followed it up with the public release of the information. And I think people have heard that our Merrimack has a higher than expected number of people with kidney and renal pelvis cancers between the years of 2019 and 2018 than should be typically observed in a town of similar size in New Hampshire. That, of course, is concerning, and we know that it doesn't indicate necessarily a cancer cluster, and that we can't yet draw any real conclusions about it. There needs to be, this is just the beginning steps. There has to be like 4 steps, and we're in step 2. But it's a sort of a little flag, the signal flag that says we need to do more. So in addition to the information that was shared, just that general information about kidney cancer, we were given, as part of our presentation, a little handout. And in that handout, during the presentation, a number of us asked some questions that we saw that also raised concerns. There's a list of cancer types. I don't know, it's about 20 or something here, but the cancer that, of course, is statistically significant is kidney and renal pelvis cancer, and by about 20 cases more than we should see here. But when we looked over some of the other cancers, and including colon and rectum, non-Hodgkin lymphoma, urinary bladder, and prostate. Those numbers were, though not statistically significant, were very, very close, just under the bar that would meet that. And so we raised that as an issue of concern and a request for ongoing monitoring, because we were told at this presentation that this standardized incident ratios are not 100% always accurate, so there's a little flexibility under or over, and that there's an acknowledgement of missing data from the VA. There's been a significant delay in reporting, so we would expect to see increased prostate cancers maybe and others. We certainly know that arsenic, there's certainly a relationship between that and bladder cancer, but these numbers are sort of up there too. So things that we need to keep on our radar. DHHS recognizes that we are pushing for a little bit more data collection, and certainly support them. Whatever we need to do, provide funding, resources, staffing resources to address the things that we would like answered. So that's in process. And then I don't even know, I've lost track. This week has been a little busy, but 2 days ago, I think we had a release from the Agency for Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, people know as the ATSDR. And we had requested a health evaluation, a study of our community. And they just released one regarding the private drinking water wells in our area. It's, I don't know, I think about 56 pages. Okay. I don't know if you've all read it, but
No.
Personally, I'm quite underwhelmed.
It's a joke.
Yeah, I thank you, Barbara. It's not complete. It's, I don't want to say a lot of bad things about it, but it's not especially helpful. And I think we need to have we're still awaiting the information about all the public wells. That was supposed to be part of it. So that's, in the process, we've been told, and, this is also a report that the public will be able to comment on until, let's see, March 1st, 2022. So we can follow up about this, but I just wanted to give people a heads up because I know they're hearing about the cancer rates. And just the other thing that I wanted to mention, if people in our community have had a diagnosis that they're willing to speak with DHHS about, I actually know I have a young man that was a friend of mine in our community that was not counted in this particular case because he was diagnosed in 2021 and lost a kidney. And I said, keep an ear and please let me know how DHHS is responding. And he said he had made a call to get some information. They had actually already been in touch with him. They have a meeting on Tuesday. So they are following up. And so those are cases that are not even counted in this. So I think it certainly bears watching, nothing to get crazy about, but it's certainly something that we need to follow up. And I'm glad we're making tracks. And so if people would do that, I think will help everybody and really get a sense of this. And then the other thing was finally that the DHHS will be scheduling a public meeting in January. So I'm sure they'll be in touch with the town manager, and so that's sort of it in a nutshell, and I'll keep you updated.
Okay, thank you. Barbara?
Just on a follow-up to that, I thought it would be helpful for DHHS to do a map showing where the cases are located. Are they within the consent decree, or are they on that, second circle outside of the consent decree? That might be interesting. Also, I sent Paul an email to say that, we might want to share that report with our health officer here in town, as well as Merrimack Visiting Nurses and Hospice, so that they have it on their radar that they may, in fact, see an increase in cases going into hospice at some point in the next couple of years, if not sooner.
Those are great points, Barbara. I think that we'll bring that up at the next meeting. The other, sort of tagging along on what you're talking about in terms of notification of healthcare providers in the community. We've been asking DHHS for quite some time, along with New Hampshire Medical Society. I've met with them both, and I actually had a bill that was absorbed into another commission I sit on, environmentally triggered chronic disease, which is actually doing a lot of similar and parallel work to the HB 737, commission. there's a nurse practitioner that sits on the SB 85 commission with me, who is awesome, and she actually is coordinating a presentation at the Northern New England Nurse Practitioners Conference in April 6th through 8th up at Bretton Woods. And Dr. Jonathan Patali and I will be presenting to the Nurse Practitioners Association with the goal, DHHS is going to come, have a panel and physician, I think we're working on that too, but with the goal of making this a sort of a template for healthcare providers across the state, because that's what you said was so true. We have providers that are seeing patients, and patients are more informed than our providers, and so that's the thing. So thank you.
Okay, any other comments from the council? Nancy?
I just want to say Merry Christmas to Merrimack and Happy Holidays and also Happy New Year. Hope everyone enjoys it. I hope we have a little snow just to be able to provide a little atmosphere, but not enough to plow.
And only on the grass.
And yes.
They're only on the
So,
grass, yeah, not on any
I
concrete or
hope
asphalt.
everyone enjoys the season.
Thank you, Nancy. Lon?
Yes, Merry Christmas to the council, Merry Christmas to Merrimack, Happy New Year. See you sometime after the 1st.
Yeah, we get off all the way until the 6th.
And if
then
there are
we-
no other comments, I make a motion to adjourn. Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
was gonna ask Andy if he had any comments from the Conservation Commission. Anything special going on with them these days? Not to share?
No,
Okay.
not since our last meeting.
Oh, okay, right. Good. So there was a motion to adjourn,
Second.
seconded by Barbara Healy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That passes 600. Thank you. Merry Christmas and good night.